Chapter 192. The bright headlights were like a long river, brightly illuminating the deserted road. The quiet Christmas night suddenly became noisy. Gu Nianji snuggled into Hua Xiaoheng's broad embrace and suddenly felt all the loneliness disappear. Her past, present, and future could only be placed in one place, and that was by his side in his embrace. Gu Nianji sobbed quietly. She tried her best to suppress the sound, but it sounded as pitiful as a kitten in the quiet night sky. She didn't want to make too much noise in case others heard her and laughed at her for acting spoiled at such an age. Also, her feelings for Hua Xiaoheng were no longer purely dependent like before. After indulging herself for a while, Gu Nianji buried her head in Hua Xiaoheng's chest and took a deep breath, as if she wanted to absorb the warmth from his body. Hua Xiaoheng gently patted her back, just like how he calmed her when she was nervous when she was young. Gu Nianji closed her eyes and finally lifted her head from Hua Xiaoheng's embrace. She took a step back and struggled out of his embrace. She looked around them and realized that Hua Xiaoheng had come to pick her up this time. It could only be described as a grand show of force. A long row of military vehicles was parked on the street. The 3 vehicles at the front were actually lightning-proof, explosion-proof, and anti-attack SUVs. Even if they encountered landmines or rockets, they wouldn't be afraid. Then there were 4 identical sleek black bulletproof sedans to confuse the enemy. If someone wanted to attack the private vehicles, they would first have to find the one with the real chief sitting in it. Behind the bulletproof sedans were 3 small urban military transport trucks. Behind each truck sat about 50 fully armed soldiers. These people were Hua Xiaoheng's orderlies, led by Fan Jian, and only listened to his orders. As soon as Hua Xiaoheng got out of the car, at least 100 armed soldiers immediately got out of the trucks behind him. They carried loaded guns and stood guard at each intersection of the long street. Occasionally, pedestrians or private cars would pass by, but when they saw this, they were so scared that they quickly took a detour. The entire street was basically blocked by Hua Xiaoheng's people. Yin Shixiang and Zhao Liangze were both in their lieutenant colonel uniforms. They stood on either side of Hua Xiaoheng in the shadows and looked around cautiously. Not far from here there were snipers in position lying on top of the wall, watching every blind spot in case someone shot from the back. This was the standard for Hua Xiaoheng, a major general and the acting commander of the 6th Military Region. In the past he rarely used such a standard outfit to travel. Most of the time he would travel incognito. Why did they have to send such a big team to pick her up? Wasn't her identity a secret? In the past, when she left the Special Operations Forces base to attend university, she had always used a fake identity. Hua Xiaoheng's identity as her guardian had never been known to outsiders. Gu Nianji looked at Hua Xiaoheng with some confusion. Her jade-like eyes seemed to be able to speak and were filled with desire. Hua Xiaoheng understood what she meant. He looked around and smiled. You don't have to keep our relationship a secret anymore. This was going to reveal Gu Nianji's identity. Gu Nianji's heart skipped a beat. She couldn't contain her joy, but when she thought about it, she felt it wasn't optimistic. Her expression changed several times in an instant. Finally, the corners of her mouth twitched. No one knew what she was thinking. Gu Nianji looked down. Really? But I'm already 18. I don't need a guardian anymore. Hua Xiaoheng didn't argue with her. He turned around to open the car door. Let's go. I'll take you home. Gu Nianji looked up at him and couldn't see any emotion on his calm face. She turned back to look at the place where she had been sitting. Her cherry blossom pink suitcase was still there. Zhao Liangze quickly walked over and carried her suitcase over. Thank you, Brother Zhe. Gu Nianji's voice was so soft that it was almost inaudible. Zhao Liangze smiled at her and put her suitcase in the trunk of the car. Gu Nianji bent down to get into the car and sat in the last row. Hua Xiaoheng followed behind her and sat next to her. The car was very spacious. The last row had one more parking space than normal sedans, so it could usually seat 4 people. But as soon as Hua Xiaoheng sat down, Gu Nianji felt the space in the car was unusually tight. She uncomfortably moved closer to the window. Hua Xiaoheng sensed her distancing and didn't say anything. He only glanced at her and raised his chin at Yin Shixiang, who was looking back at him. Yin Shixiang nodded and turned around to knock on Fan Jian's seat. Drive. A series of orders were issued. The soldiers on guard quickly returned to the truck and sat down. The sniper brought up the rear. At the same time he issued orders for the sniper at the next station to take over. The orders were passed down one after another. Gu Nianji sat in the car gloomily. She didn't know what to say. She had wanted to see Hua Xiaoheng for a full 6 months. But before she saw him, she had just discovered her unspeakable secret. She didn't know how to continue interacting with him. The car steadily set off and drove forward. Hua Xiaoheng rested one hand on the side of the car door and the other on his knee. He looked straight ahead and pursed his lips. He didn't say anything. The car was soundproof, so it was very quiet in the car for a while. The car started to move, but it didn't warm up quickly. It was only a little better than outside. Gu Nianji had been freezing outside the car earlier. She thought she would warm up in the car. She didn't expect the car to still be freezing cold even after turning onto the highway. She breathed on her hands, trying to warm them. Although Hua Xiaoheng was facing forward and wasn't looking in Gu Nianji's direction, he could see her from head to toe from the corner of his eyes. He noticed Gu Nianji's action. He looked down and thought about it. He coughed and said to Gu Nianji, "Nianji, give me a random book from your box." Gu Nianji looked down and saw the small box next to the car door. She reached out and opened it. She took out a book and handed it to Hua Xiaoheng. They were sitting quite far away. Hua Xiaoheng didn't reach over to take it, so Gu Nianji couldn't reach him even if she stretched out her arms. She didn't think too much about it. She took the book and moved to the side. She sat closer to Hua Xiaoheng and handed it to him. Hua Xiaoheng finally reached his hand out, but he didn't take the book. Instead, he grabbed her wrist and pulled her over to sit next to him with a little force. His other hand reached over and took the book from her hand. He randomly placed it on the seat. A large, warm hand was already holding Gu Nianji's small hands in the middle of his palm. "You were in the cold for too long. The car can't be too warm. You'll get sick. You have to take it slow." Hua Xiaoheng rubbed her hands as he slowly explained why the car wasn't warm. His deep, magnetic voice caused a warm current to burst from Gu Nianji's heart. It quickly flowed through her limbs. Gu Nianji immediately felt warm all over. It was like she was soaking in a hot spring. She looked up at Hua Xiaoheng and whispered, "You knew I was sitting outside for a long time?" "Yeah." Hua Xiaoheng paused. "I should have sent a car for you. You didn't have to wait outside." He even knew she had been foolishly waiting outside for over 2 hours. Gu Nianji blushed but didn't want to be mocked. She said angrily, "I'm not a prophet. How would I know Mei Xiaowen would be so petty?" As she spoke, she recounted the entire incident, especially what happened in Mei Xiaowen's apartment. After she finished, she turned her head away and looked out the window in silence. Hua Xiaoheng's expressionless face finally broke into a smile. He agreed. "Well said. It'll be either you or him in the future. You don't have to feel bad." Zhao Liangzi, Yin Shixiang and Fan Jian couldn't help but roll their eyes. Hua Xiaoheng was so protective. How had Nianji felt bad? She had taught Mei Xiaowen and Jiang Hongcha such a lesson that they didn't know which way was north. Of course, in Hua Xiaoheng's eyes, it was already a great injustice that she had been frozen in front of the residential area for 2 hours. His sweetheart must have been wronged, Zhao Liangzi and Yin Shixiang complained in their hearts, but they didn't dare to turn around and speak no matter how brave they were. Gu Nianji was very happy to hear this. Although she had to look out the window, she couldn't help smiling secretly. However, her smile didn't last long. She froze. She turned to look at Hua Xiaoheng's deep eyes. "Hua Xiaoheng, where are we going? This isn't the way to the airport." Didn't Hua Xiaoheng say he was taking her home? Weren't they going to the airport to take a plane back to Sea City? Hua Xiaoheng patted her hand. "We're going home. I'm taking you home." "Home?" Gu Nianji didn't understand. "Home where?" "My home." Hua Xiaoheng didn't say anything else. Not far ahead, a heavily guarded residential area appeared before everyone's eyes. This was where the Huaxia Imperial Army's top brass lived. Gu Nianji felt even more uneasy. For the past 6 years, Hua Xiaoheng had always been with her as long as he wasn't working. He had never gone back to his own home. When she heard that Hua Xiaoheng had his own home, Gu Nianji was a bit uncomfortable. She even began to tremble. Hua Xiaoheng glanced at her and said dryly, "My father is the director of the military's political department. I have a grandfather who retired a few years ago. I also have a few relatives, but you don't have to worry about them." Yin Shixiang turned around and appropriately smoothed things over. "Nianji, Hua Xiaoheng hasn't been home for 6 years. Thanks to you, Hua Xiaoheng can also go home for Christmas." "I don't celebrate Christmas," Hua Xiaoheng said slowly. "I'm just going home for the new year." This was the first update. The second update today was also 2 updates in one, including the first update for Bookworm's July 1688 Spiritual Pet Fate. It was around 1 p.m. It's the end of the month. Everyone, please vote for the Major General. Oh, and oh. Chapter 193. New Year's. There was still at least a week between Christmas and New Year's, so she would have an entire week to spend with Hua Xiao. Happiness came too quickly and she wasn't used to it. Gu Nianji's palms gradually became sweaty and fell into Hua Xiaoheng's dry and warm hands. It quickly disappeared as though it had seeped into his palms. Gu Nianji was secretly happy about this discovery. It was like a ritual to declare her belonging. She quietly rotated her small hands in Hua Xiaoheng's palms. When her palms became sweaty, she quietly flipped them over to fit Hua Xiaoheng's palms together, allowing the sweat in her palms to seep into his palms. Hua Xiaoheng quietly let her play. Sometimes when her palms weren't pressed tightly, he intentionally cooperated and tried to stretch his palms so that their palms could fit. Gu Nianji repeated this little game and gradually became immersed in it. She almost forgot about her warning to stay away from Hua Xiaoheng. She played until she almost forgot the time. When she looked up again, the motorcade had already stopped at the entrance of the precinct. Gu Nianji instinctively turned to see Hua Xiaoheng looking at her quietly with a half-smile. His gaze then moved to their clasped palms. Hua Xiaoheng was the one who had taken the initiative to hold Gu Nianji's hand to warm it, but Gu Nianji felt guilty. Her heart immediately raced, afraid that Hua Xiaoheng would see through her unspeakable thoughts. She suddenly felt that Hua Xiaoheng's palm was as hot as a soldering iron. She quickly withdrew her hand from Hua Xiaoheng's and moved far away to sit on the other side of the car. She turned her head to look out the window. The crimson blush spread from her cheeks to her delicate earlobes. The car they were in also stopped. Of course, there was a security check at the entrance of the precinct. After verifying the passes and military IDs, the soldier standing guard came out to salute Hua Xiaoheng. "Hello, Chief." The car window slowly rolled down. Hua Xiaoheng sat in the car and nodded at them. "Thank you for your hard work." The soldier was so excited that his face was red. "Chief, please." He turned and ran back to his post. He pressed the button to raise the crossbar blocking the intersection. Hua Xiaoheng's motorcade slowly drove in. He was going home to visit his family. His guards, orderlies, and personal secretaries would only return to the headquarters of the 6th Military Region's Special Operations Forces in the imperial capital after sending him home. It was already warm inside the car. Gu Nianji sat on the other side of the car, her face still flushed. She didn't dare to look back at Hua Xiaoheng, so she could only try her best to look out the window and silently memorize the road they had passed. The roads in the neighborhood extended in all directions, and there were parasol trees by the roadside that had already lost their leaves. It was still snowing heavily, but there was no snow on the road. Gu Nianji leaned her head against the window with some confusion. She looked at the seemingly inconspicuous road and was very puzzled. The snow on the side of the road had almost covered the tops of their feet, but there was no snow on the road at all, and it was not because someone had swept it. Gu Nianji followed the headlights and saw very clearly that the snow disappeared without a trace as soon as it landed on the road. Hua Xiaoheng crossed his arms and sat at the other end of the back seat. He didn't make a sound and she couldn't tell what he was thinking. Zhao Liangzi turned around to talk to Gu Nianji. "Nianji, what are you looking at?" "I'm looking at this road. It seems strange." "The snow doesn't accumulate on it," Gu Nianji said curiously. Zhao Liangzi laughed heartily and pointed at the road outside the window. He wagged his finger. "There's a self-heating device under that road. Of course, the snow melts on its own when it falls on it. Isn't that great? We don't have to sweep the snow, and we don't have to worry about obstructing traffic." But how much energy would it take to do that? Gu Nianji suddenly had a new understanding of the sophistication of this neighborhood. If there was a self-heating device buried under the road, then there was no need for her to think about how well-equipped the entire neighborhood was, and what kind of people lived there. Gu Nianji sat up a little uncomfortably. She was a little worried that she would embarrass Hua Xiao. She glanced at Hua Xiaoheng and saw that his eyes were half closed. His thick and long eyelashes covered his eyes, so she couldn't tell what he was thinking at all. Even professional psychologists couldn't tell what he was thinking from his usual indifferent expression. Reading micro-expressions and subconscious judgment didn't apply to him. Fortunately, the convoy stopped not long after. They should have arrived. Gu Nianji was even more nervous. She even reached out to run her hand through her long hair. Everyone in the car looked at her, but no one said anything. Yin Shixiang opened the door first and got out. He came out to open the door for Hua Xiaoheng. Hua Xiaoheng bent over to get out of the car and slightly moved to stand beside the door. When Gu Nianji came out, Hua Xiaoheng took her hand and had her stand beside him. In front of them was an exquisite courtyard that looked like a manor. There was a towering iron gate guarding the entrance. An exquisite iron door lamp hung on the iron gate. It illuminated the black wood sign on the white wall, revealing the ancient words Hua Residence. Zhao Liangzi walked over and entered a password on the wall. Soon, the iron gate slowly opened with a rumble, and the sound of footsteps and surprised shouts could be heard coming from behind the iron gate. Huoxiao is back? Huoxiao is back. Cousin brother is back. Cousin brother. There were quite a lot of people here. It was the middle of the night, but the courtyard was brightly lit. They must have known in advance that Huoxiaoheng was coming home, so they were all waiting for him. Gunyanji felt her legs go weak. She almost couldn't stand. Just as the iron gate opened and the Hua family rushed out to welcome them, Huoxiaoheng, who was standing in front of the gate, turned around leisurely and stood in front of Gunyanji. He reached out to adjust the Hermes scarf around her neck. His slender, clean and warm fingers brushed against the cool skin of her neck. His warm fingertips caused waves of tremors to run through her skin, and Gunyanji felt her legs grow even weaker. She couldn't help but reach out and grab his arm. Huoxiaoheng looked down at her and smiled warmly. He patted her shoulder. "It's okay. Come home with me." The Hua family who came out to welcome Huoxiaoheng didn't expect this. Under the bright lights, Huoxiaoheng stood tall and handsome. He was tying a scarf for a girl. More than one of the Hua family members rubbed their eyes in disbelief. They were afraid that they were hallucinating from staying up late. Huoxiaoheng turned around and looked at each of the Hua family members. He only nodded and took Gunyanji's hand to walk through the gate. Zhao Liangzi carried Gunyanji's small suitcase and followed them inside. Gunyanji's eyes quickly scanned the faces of the Hua family members who came out to welcome them. She couldn't tell what relationship they had with Huoxiaoheng. She saw a middle-aged couple and two young people, a man and a woman, come out to welcome them. From their age, the middle-aged couple should be from Huoxiaoheng's parents' generation. The two young people should be from Huoxiaoheng's generation? She remembered hearing someone call him cousin brother. So were they Huoxiaoheng's uncles or siblings? Gunyanji's imagination ran wild as she followed Huoxiaoheng into the Hua family's three-story building. This building was about half the size of Huoxiaoheng's three-story building at the Special Operations Forces base in Sea City. It looked like there were more rooms inside. Of course there were more people living here. Huoxiaoheng's building was only for him and Gunyanji. She didn't know how many people were living here. Gunyanji put on the most appropriate smile and followed Huoxiaoheng into the living room. There were also people waiting for them in the living room. Sitting on the main sofa was an old man with white hair and beard, but his bearing hadn't diminished. He held a dragon-headed cane in his hand. Although he was old, his face was still very intimidating. Huoxiaoheng saluted the old man and pulled Gunyanji over. "This is my great-grandfather." Gunyanji looked at Huoxiaoheng and asked hesitantly, "Is he your great-grandfather?" "No, he's my grandfather." Huoxiaoheng said calmly and looked away. "He's your great-grandfather." Gunyanji pursed her lips and refused to accept Huoxiaoheng's way of addressing her. She smiled sweetly at the old man. "Merry Christmas, grandfather." She enunciated the word great-grandfather, so that it sounded like she was calling him grandfather. Huoxiaoheng glanced at her slowly. The old man looked at Gunyanji carefully and turned to Huoxiaoheng. "Is that her?" Huoxiaoheng nodded and bowed. "That's her. I'm her guardian." There was a middle-aged man sitting next to the old man. He had a handsome but weathered face and looked somewhat like Huoxiaoheng. He looked up at Gunyanji and nodded before she could call out to him. "You're Gunyanji?" Gunyanji answered crisply and looked at Huoxiaoheng obediently. "Huoxiao, this is..." Huoxiaoheng looked at her again and sensed her resistance to the title and identity. He didn't indulge her and said in a low voice, "This is my father and your grandfather." As he spoke, he introduced Gunyanji to the people in the room. "This is Gunyanji. I'm her guardian and her uncle." Gunyanji's heart sank and she didn't dare argue with Huoxiaoheng anymore. She nodded obediently at the people in the room and asked deliberately, "Uncle Hua, what are they?" She pointed at the four people who had come out to greet them. Huoxiaoheng looked at them and nodded at the middle-aged couple. "They are Uncle Zhang and Aunt Zhang." He then looked at the young man and woman. "This is their daughter Zhang Wenna and their son Zhang Wenjie." Gunyanji thought it was strange. Why didn't this family follow seniority again? If Zhang Wenna and Zhang Wenjie called Huoxiaoheng elder cousin brother, then their parents were also Gunyanji's granduncles and granduncles. Shouldn't they be calling them Uncle Zhang and Aunt Zhang? Also, why were their surnames Zhang and not Hua? But she was smart enough not to ask. She followed Huoxiaoheng and said, "Merry Christmas, Uncle Zhang, Aunt Zhang." Then she looked at the young man and woman and said in English, "Merry Christmas." Zhang Wenjie looked at Gunyanji's big misty eyes and instantly felt his mouth go dry. He stammered and almost couldn't speak. Zhang Wenna was the smart one. She walked over with a smile and took Gunyanji's hand. "My elder cousin brother is your guardian?" How old are you? I see you're younger than me. You can call me Sister Na. This was the second update of the day, including the first update of Bookworm's July 1688 Spiritual Pet Fate. It's the end of the month, so please vote for the Major General. Chapter 194. Gunyenji wasn't used to physical contact with strangers. She couldn't even stand to hold hands. When she first went to C University and lived in the dorm, it took 6 months for her to get to know her roommates. It was only because of Hua Xiaoheng that Gunyenji resisted the urge to pull her hand out of Zhang Wenna's. However, Hua Xiaoheng was very familiar with her quirks that no one knew about. He stood next to Zhang Wenna and pulled her hand away. He nodded slightly at Zhang Wenna, then asked Zhang Wenna's mother, Qian Shihui, "Aunt Zhang, have you prepared Nianji's room?" His tone was very polite. Qian Shihui hurriedly smiled and said, "Young master, your room and Miss Gu's room were prepared by Miss Jialan herself." Then she looked around and asked, "Where is Miss Jialan? Didn't she say she was going to pick master up?" Hua Xiaoheng's grandfather, Hua Xuanong, stood up with the help of his cane. He frowned at Hua Xiaoheng but didn't say anything. However, his expression didn't look too good. Zhang Wenna looked at Gunyenji carefully and was secretly amazed by her appearance. Of course, she was even more amazed by Hua Xiaoheng's attitude towards her. She knew that her eldest cousin, Hua Xiaoheng, had been out on missions for the past 6 years. Apparently, he had adopted an orphan girl he had rescued from a car accident. That must be Miss Gunyenji. Also, from the way he had acted at the door, Hua Xiaoheng must have doted on this orphan girl very much. Otherwise, he wouldn't have personally tied the scarf for her. Zhang Wenna looked down. She would never forget when she and her younger brother first came to the Hua family. Not only did Hua Xiaoheng not look them in the eye, but he also didn't allow anyone to get within 3 feet of him. Other than the 2 old servants, no matter who touched his things, he would kick them out the door, dead or alive. Back then, her eldest cousin brother was like a demon to her and her younger brother. It wasn't until he was admitted to military school at 16 and left home that he became much more restrained. But every year when he came back for vacation, he still didn't allow anyone to touch his things, not even the 2 old servants. He would rather wash his clothes and clean the house himself than let anyone step into his room. After that, he secretly enlisted in the army during his junior year. No one knew what he did in the army, only that his military rank and official position kept increasing. In 10 years he was promoted from a 2nd lieutenant to a major general. This was the first time in the entire history of the Huaxia Empire's military that such a thing had happened. Of course, the higher his eldest cousin brother's military rank, the more magnanimous and calm he became. His previous eccentricities were all gone, and the way he treated people was impeccable. However, Zhang Wenna and Zhang Wenjie, who had been with him for many years, could easily sense the slight unfamiliarity and distance between them. Therefore, the Zhang family was very shocked by his concern and praise for Gunyenji, an orphan girl. They had always thought that Hua Xiaoheng didn't like them because he looked down on their status. But now that Gunyenji, whose status was far lower than theirs, was in front of him, Hua Xiaoheng didn't look down on her at all. Not only did he not look down on her, but he also took good care of her. Being a guardian for 6 years had really changed her eldest cousin brother a lot. Zhang Wenna sighed and was about to take Hua Xiaoheng and Gunyenji to the room they had prepared for them when they heard hurried footsteps coming from the stairs. A voluptuous woman with a face as beautiful as a peony hurried down the stairs. "Eldest cousin brother, are you back?" She wore a pale pink cashmere cardigan and a silk shirt with a ribbon tied with a bow. She wore a dark gray thin wool skirt, and even her slippers had heels. She walked elegantly and quickly stood in front of Hua Xiaoheng and Gunyenji. Grandfather Hua's expression softened a lot. He walked over with his cane. "Jialan, where did you go?" Gunyenji didn't know how to address her, so she turned to look at Hua Xiaoheng. Hua Xiaoheng squeezed her hand to calm her down and introduced her. "This is my uncle's daughter, Hua Jialan. You can call her Auntie Lan." Gunyenji couldn't help looking down. The corners of her mouth twitched. She thought to herself, Auntie Lan, that woman looks 10 years older." She was only in her 20s and was even younger than Hua Xiaoheng, but Hua Xiaoheng insisted on raising her seniority. Hua Jialan was also a little embarrassed. She rubbed her hands and said to Grandfather Hua, "Grandfather, you should go to bed. It's already 2 or 3 in the morning. Have you taken your medicine?" Grandfather Hua's attitude towards Hua Jialan was obviously much better than Hua Xiaoheng's. He nodded. "Yes, I should go to bed. I'll go now. Help Xiaoheng and the others settle down. It's too late. We'll talk tomorrow." Hua Jialan agreed with a smile. She called 2 orderlies over to help Grandfather Hua to the 2nd floor. Hua Xiaoheng's father, Hua Guanchen, glanced at Hua Jialan. Did you go to the third floor just now? Hua Jialan nodded quickly. She looked nervous. I had something to do. I went upstairs to clean up. I didn't think I'd miss my cousin coming back. Hua Guanchen's brows furrowed. He waved his hand. Help them settle down. Xiaoheng, come upstairs with me. He glanced at Hua Xiaoheng and hurried upstairs as well. Hua Xiaoheng looked up at the stairs. He turned to Zhao Liangzi. Leave the luggage here. Take them back to the base. Zhao Liangzi bowed and handed the luggage to Gunyanji. He nodded at her and turned to leave. Hua Xiaoheng patted Gunyanji's shoulder. Go to the guest room with Auntie Lan. I'll go talk to my father for a bit. It had been 6 years since the father and son had sat together to talk, except for work. Gunyanji quickly said, Uncle Hua, you should go. I'll go with Auntie Lan. Good girl. Hua Xiaoheng tousled her hair and followed her upstairs. Gunyanji keenly noticed that Hua Xiaoheng's footsteps were a little rushed as he walked up the stairs. Although he appeared very calm and steady to others, Gunyanji was already familiar with Hua Xiaoheng's every move, so she could sense the slightest change. However, she felt that it was normal for the father and son to be a little emotional after not seeing each other for 6 years. This made Hua Xiaoheng seem more like a real person rather than a Cold War machine. The Zhangs finally said goodbye to Gunyanji and followed Hua Xiaoheng upstairs. Hua Jialan had been watching Gunyanji attentively. She saw that Gunyanji's eyes were glued to Hua Xiaoheng. She walked over and took her hand affectionately. You're Nyanji, right? That's a good name. Come with me. I'm Hua Jialan. My father is my cousin's uncle, but I'm younger than him. He's the oldest in our generation. Gunyanji quietly picked up her suitcase and freed herself from Hua Jialan's hand. She smiled. Merry Christmas, Aunt Lan. Thank you for your hard work. May I ask where the guest room is? Hua Jialan smiled and pointed to the stairs. Go up there. Uncle Zhang, Aunt Zhang and I live on the second floor. Grandfather Zhang and second uncle live on the third floor. Half of the first floor is the guest room, and the other half is my cousin's room. She then led Gunyanji through the ridiculously spacious living room to the corridor to the left of the living room. They turned a corner and arrived in front of a small suite. Opening the door, Gunyanji saw the room was decorated in pink. She couldn't help feeling exasperated. Why did these people think that all young girls should use the color of a pink princess? That's enough, but she only dared to complain in her heart. She maintained a sweet smile on her face. Thank you, Aunt Lan. Hua Jialan giggled. Don't call me Aunt Lan. Just call me Sister Lan. Aunt Lan makes me 10 years older. Gunyanji laughed. She thought the same thing. She immediately felt closer to this Hua Jialan. This was the first update. Today's second update was also 2 updates in one. It included the second update for Bookworm's July 1688 Spiritual Pet Affinity. It was around 1 p.m. It's the end of the month. Everyone, please vote for the Major General. Chapter 195. Although Gunyanji didn't really like the colors of the room, she had put a lot of effort into the furnishings. They were all branded furniture and a few of the furnishings were antiques. For example, the magnolia flower on the bookshelf was carved from a piece of white jade with a tinge of green. The green was carved into a green leaf and contrasted with the white magnolia flower. Under the light, it almost glowed from within. Gunyanji put down her suitcase and thanked Hua Jialan. Thank you so much, Sister Lan. You're welcome. Hua Jialan patted her shoulder lightly. This is a small suite. The living room is the entrance and the bedroom is through the small door inside. She led Gunyanji to the inner door as she spoke. The bedroom inside was fine except for the pink bedspread and round curtains hanging from the top of the bed. All the other furniture was pure white. The bedroom wasn't large but it was very cozy. The bed was on the east side, and the lamps on both sides of the bedside table were in the shape of angel dolls. A white desk was placed against the wall opposite the bed, and a white laptop was on it. The south wall of the bedroom was draped with pale gold velvet curtains. They were obviously very thick and probably had a sound insulation effect. Hua Jialan saw Gunyanji's gaze fall on the French curtains on the south wall, and walked over to lift a corner of the curtains. She smiled. There's a small flower bed at the back of your small suite, and it's connected to the garden outside. You can sit in the flower bed and eat breakfast in the morning. Gunyanji thanked her happily and saw her out. It had been a tiring day, and Gunyanji had eaten lunch on the plane from Sea City to the imperial capital. It had been more than 12 hours since then, and she hadn't eaten anything, not even water. Gunyanji thought about it, and decided that since it was her first time at Hua Xiaoheng's home, she shouldn't bother. It would be dawn soon anyway and she could eat breakfast. She opened her suitcase to grab some toiletries and a towel, and went to the bathroom to shower. After showering she felt even hungrier. She searched the small living room outside and found the small fridge with mineral water and juice. She took out a bottle of mineral water and drank half of it to satiate her hunger. Sleepiness quickly set in, and she went back to the bed in the bedroom to fall asleep. Gunyenji had been tired for an entire day, and had gone through such emotional ups and downs. Even though she had a strong constitution, she couldn't handle it. She threw herself on the bed, almost exhausted, and slept as though she had fainted. Late at night, the lights in the Hor residence were finally extinguished. Xiaoheng came down from the third floor with a heavy heart and went to check on Gunyenji first. Seeing that her door was locked and there was no sound in the room, he knew she was asleep. He didn't disturb her and went back to his room on the other side of the living room. On the other side of the living room on the first floor of the Hor residence was a suite with 3 bedrooms and 2 living rooms. It was much larger than Gunyenji's small suite. It was 150 square meters, which was the size of a typical apartment. As Hua Xiaoheng was promoted, he gradually made full use of the suite. Returning to the suite that he hadn't seen in 6 years, Hua Xiaoheng scanned the room and realized that everything was exactly the same as he remembered it to be 6 years ago, including the navy blue sheets on the bed. The room was decorated in a simple blue and white color scheme. It was simple, elegant, and full of solemnity. Hua Xiaoheng unbuckled his belt and went to the bathroom to wash up. He also took a shower. He turned on his computer to check his inbox and saw an email from Zhao Liangzi. It turned out that they had gone through a lot of trouble returning to the 6th Military Region's headquarters in the imperial capital. Hua Xiaoheng skimmed through it and replied to him before turning off his computer and going to bed. In the entire Hor residence, only the 3rd floor was dimly lit. But when the heavy curtains were drawn, nothing could be seen. Gunyenji had another dream. Because she had gone to bed hungry, she was eating even in her dreams. She dreamed that she was sitting at a round table filled with all kinds of food and cakes that she liked to eat. There was also her favorite freshly squeezed mango juice, iced milk, and a piping hot roast duck. Gunyenji didn't know why she was dreaming of roast duck. She clearly hated eating roast duck. Perhaps it was because the roast duck in Sea City wasn't as authentic as the ones in the imperial capital. In the past, Yin Shixiang had always said that when they moved to the imperial capital, he would take Gunyenji to eat the most authentic roast duck in the entire Huaxia Empire. Gunyenji could almost smell the aroma of roast duck in her dreams. But a gust of cold wind blew, and the piping hot roast duck was almost frozen. Even the fat was frozen. Gunyenji cried out in her dreams and couldn't help smacking her lips. She reached out and pulled off a duck leg from the roast duck. There was no spring onion, so she only dipped it in the sweet flour sauce and stuffed it into her mouth. At that moment she suddenly felt her tongue hurt. It turned out that she had bitten her tongue while dreaming of eating. Gunyenji almost woke up with tears in her eyes. When she opened her sleepy eyes, she saw a man in white sitting by her bed and looking at her. The room was supposed to be dark, but when Gunyenji woke up, she saw light coming through the curtains and a cold wind blowing. The person was sitting with his back to the light, so she couldn't see his face at all. A gust of cold wind blew again and Gunyenji's body stiffened. She couldn't move, as if she was in a nightmare. She opened her eyes wide and tried to adjust to the dim light in the room. Finally she vaguely saw the person's face. So it was a woman. And a woman so beautiful that it made people speechless. Gunyenji was so anxious that she was sweating profusely. She desperately wanted to move but still couldn't. For a moment she even wondered if she was still dreaming. It was a dream within a dream. She thought she was awake but she wasn't. At that moment the woman reached out and touched Gunyenji's face. Her fingers were as cold as ice, and as soon as they touched Gunyenji's cheek, Gunyenji shivered. As soon as the shiver subsided, Gunyenji found that she could speak. Instinctively she screamed, "Help! Uncle Hua! Xiao! Help!" She didn't know if her voice could be heard, but at that moment, all she could do was scream. The woman seemed to be startled by her and stood up abruptly. With a faint light coming through the curtains, Gunyenji saw that the woman was wearing a long white velvet robe. Barefoot, she left her bed and ran towards the French window. The street lights outside the window suddenly went out, and the room was as dark as the outside. Gunyenji discovered that she could now move. She frantically scrambled to her feet and sobbed, "Uncle Hua," as she rushed out of the room. She didn't dare look at the French window. She just wanted to leave the bedroom and hide beside Hua Xiaoheng. "Hua Xiao, Uncle Hua, where are you?" Gunyenji opened her door and rushed out of the small suite, screaming all the way to the living room. "What happened?" What happened? The orderlies on night duty immediately rushed in with loaded guns. They turned on the lights and aimed their guns at Gunyenji. Gunyenji stood alone in the middle of the living room, also barefoot. She was only wearing a strapless pink Egyptian cotton nightgown. Her face was covered in tears, and her seaweed-like hair fell over her back. Her pale face almost glowed like a white jade mushroom under the lights. The orderlies sighed in relief when they saw that Hua Xiaoheng had brought her back, but didn't lower their guns. They only asked Gunyenji, "Miss Gu, what happened?" Someone ran into my bedroom," Gunyenji sobbed. She hadn't been so scared in a long time. She was tired, hungry, sleepy, and in extreme shock. Even a person made of steel couldn't handle it. Wu Jialan was the first to rush down from upstairs. She saw Gunyenji standing alone in the middle of the living room with several orderlies pointing their guns at her. She quickly said, "Hey, put your guns away." The orderlies didn't move. They didn't listen to her. Wu Jialan was a bit embarrassed. She turned to see Hua Guanchen and quickly said, "Second uncle, tell them to put their guns down." "What happened?" Hua Guanchen's voice was stern. "Where's Xiaoheng? How can he still sleep when something like this happened?" Hua Jialan was even more embarrassed. She coughed and said, "Second uncle, cousin's room is very soundproof. I'm afraid he didn't hear, then go call him." Hua Guanchen suppressed his anger. "Go now." One of the orderlies put away his gun and went to Hua Xiaoheng's bedroom to press the special doorbell. Hua Xiaoheng had just fallen asleep. His suite had been renovated in the last 6 years. The soundproofing was excellent. He wouldn't even hear a knock without the doorbell. Of course, he didn't know that his room had been completely renovated. The suite's doorbell was directly connected to his bedside. He woke up when the doorbell rang. He opened his eyes and composed himself. He looked at his watch to see that it was only 3:30 in the morning. He couldn't help but frown. He spoke into the intercom. "What's wrong?" "Hua Xiao, please come out for a moment. Miss Gu isn't feeling well." Hua Xiaoheng threw the blankets off the bed and went out in his pajamas. He went to the living room to see Gunyenji hiding behind the sofa and refusing to come out. Hua Jialan, Zhang Wenna, and Zhang Wenjie were doing everything they could to get her to come out. The corners of Hua Xiaoheng's mouth twitched. He quickly walked over and reached his hand out to Gunyenji. "Yenji, come out." Gunyenji raised her tear-stained face. She finally burst into tears when she saw Hua Xiaoheng. She grabbed his hand and was carried out from behind the sofa. Hua Xiaoheng carried Gunyenji horizontally in his arms. He noticed that her body was icy cold. He didn't have time to ask for details. He quickly carried her to his bedroom. Hua Jialan, Zhang Wenna, and Zhang Wenjie looked at each other. They could all see the shock on each other's faces. "What's wrong with Miss Gu?" Hua Jialan's brows were tightly furrowed. She was fine. How did she end up like this? Miss Gu said that someone broke into her bedroom. The orderly squad leader said. That's how she kept screaming just now. Someone broke into her bedroom? That's impossible. Zhang Wenna looked at Hua Jialan. Sister Jialan, that bedroom is a small suite. If the door is locked from the inside, no one can get in even if they have a key. Hua Jialan sighed. I don't know either. Why don't we go check her bedroom? One of the orderlies stepped forward to block their way. Please return to your rooms. Hua Xiao will take care of this. Hua Xiaoheng seemed to be taking over the household the moment he returned. Hua Guanchen didn't say anything. He turned and went upstairs. He didn't object. That meant he supported Hua Xiaoheng's takeover. Hua Jialan couldn't say anything. She followed him upstairs. Zhang Wenna and Zhang Wenjie couldn't interfere with Hua Xiaoheng's affairs. They could only return to their rooms. Sister, do you think someone really broke into Miss Gu's room? Zhang Wenjie's voice was low, but Hua Jialan could hear him. She turned around and glanced at the siblings. Miss Gu only stayed for a few days before leaving. You don't need me to teach you what to say and what not to say, do you? Yes, Sister Jialan. Zhang Wenna and Zhang Wenjie nodded quickly. They didn't dare to gossip anymore. Hua Xiaoheng carried Gunyenji back to his bedroom. Seeing that she was barefoot, he quickly held her foot and rubbed it for her. He sat diagonally on his bed and held her in his arms. He comforted her softly, it's okay now. Gunyenji clutched the collar of Hua Xiaoheng's pajamas tightly. She couldn't stop shivering. She felt so cold. She desperately wanted to get closer to the source of heat. Hua Xiaoheng's body was like a furnace. How could she resist a furnace on a winter's night? Gunyenji snuggled even tighter against Hua Xiaoheng. Hua Xiaoheng's body suddenly stiffened. He looked up at the ceiling of the bedroom. He took a deep breath and pursed his lips. He shifted back slightly to distance his suddenly protruding body from the soft body in his arms. His large hand continued to soothe Gunyanji's back. It finally calmed her nerves. Gunyanji sobbed. Wuxiao, someone's in my bedroom? Hua Xiaoheng nodded. Don't be afraid. I'll go take a look. He turned to leave. Don't leave me here alone. Gunyanji panicked. She grabbed Hua Xiaoheng's shirt. I'm scared. She was unfamiliar with the place. Although this was Hua Xiaoheng's home, she still couldn't relax her nerves. Coupled with the inexplicable fright she had just received, she wasn't used to the environment. Hua Xiaoheng thought about it. He took out a pair of slippers. Put them on. Come with me to your bedroom. Gunyanji sniffed. She grabbed his sleeve and got off the bed. She put on Hua Xiaoheng's large slippers and followed him out. The slippers were too big for Gunyanji. As she walked over, all she could hear was the sound of the slippers flapping against each other. Hua Xiaoheng didn't mind. He took Gunyanji's hand and walked to Gunyanji's bedroom on the other side of the living room. A few orderlies overheard them in the living room. They looked down to see Gunyanji wearing such a large pair of men's slippers. They wanted to laugh. Follow me. Hua Xiaoheng didn't look back. Yes. When they arrived at Gunyanji's bedroom, Hua Xiaoheng walked in first. The living room was fine, but the bedroom was dark. Hua Xiaoheng turned on the light at the door. The soft night light poured into the bedroom. There were no signs of outsiders entering the room. The floor-to-ceiling curtains were lowered, and the floor-to-ceiling windows were tightly shut. A corner of the blanket on her bed was lifted. It was probably because she had gotten up in a hurry. Gunyanji followed in and saw the situation. She said in shock, I clearly saw someone sitting at the head of my bed. It's a woman. She's very beautiful. This was the second chapter of 2 chapters in one, including the second added chapter of Bookworm's July 1688 Spiritual Pet Fate. I'm too sleepy. I'll edit it tomorrow. That's it for today. It's the end of the month. Everyone, please vote for the Major General. Chapter 196. Did he have a nightmare? One of the orderlies behind him muttered in a low voice. He also found it a little unbelievable. They had been orderlies in the Hua Manor for many years, but this was the first time they had encountered something like this. There were strict security measures both inside and outside the house, and no outsider had ever broken in. How could a woman have suddenly broken through their defenses? Gunyanji walked to her bed in a daze and pulled back the quilt that was only partially uncovered. She discovered that the sheets were as smooth as if no one had slept in them. She knew what was going on and turned to look at Hua Xiaoheng sternly. Uncle Hua, do you trust me? I do. Hua Xiaoheng stood at the bedroom door with his hands behind his back. He did not walk to Gunyanji's bed, but instead walked towards the French curtains on the south wall of the bedroom. Lifting a corner of the curtains, Hua Xiaoheng placed his hand on the handle of the French window and gently pushed it open a crack. The cold wind and flying snow immediately rushed into the bedroom. The window is open. Hua Xiaoheng turned to look at the orderlies. Who cleaned this room today? The orderlies shook their heads. Sir, the servants cleaned this room. We don't do this. They were only responsible for the safety of 2 military figures in the Hua family. Grandfather Hua Xuanong, the retired former vice president of the military, and his son Hua Guanchen, the current director of the military political department. Their meals were prepared by special orderlies, and they did not eat with the rest of the Hua family. Now that Hua Xiaoheng was back, the orderlies had one more person to serve. Gunyanji was not a member of the military, so her affairs should be taken care of by the Hua family servants. Hua Xiaoheng turned to look out the window. He remembered that along the flower bed and garden, there was a line of iron street lamps that illuminated the area. It was as bright as day at night, so the curtains in the Hua Manor had to be strictly shaded. But now all the street lamps outside were out. This was no ordinary occurrence. Why are the street lamps outside gone? Hua Xiaoheng quietly closed the window and locked it. He lowered the curtains and turned to look at the orderlies. The leader of the orderlies was pale. He had not noticed this problem. The small suite that Gunyanji lived in was a corner of the Hua Manor that had been empty for a long time. No one had lived in it for more than a decade. This time, Hua Xiaoheng had ordered someone to call back at the last minute to say that he was going home for the new year, so the Hua family had hurriedly packed. The street lamp outside the suite was not in an important position, so it did not matter whether it was on or off. But today was different. Chief, you mean someone came in through the floor-to-ceiling window? The leader of the orderlies quickly saluted. I'll get someone to fix the street lamps. Hua Xiaoheng waved his hand as if he didn't want to pursue the matter. I'll fix it tomorrow. Lock this place and don't let anyone near. Yes, chief. Hua Xiaoheng walked to Gu Nianji's side. Pack your things and stay at my place. Gu Nianji couldn't have asked for more. She rushed to the bathroom to put her toiletries back into her suitcase and followed Hua Xiaoheng out. Hua Xiaoheng walked a few steps and heard the sound of her slippers and the rumbling of her suitcase on the floor. He turned around and took the suitcase from her hand. With the other hand he held her hand and led her into his suite. The door to the suite slammed shut. Of course the orderlies didn't follow them in. They discussed it and sent a few people to guard the door to Gu Nianji's room and not let anyone near. Gu Nianji followed Hua Xiaoheng into his suite and finally had the time to look around. Hua Xiaoheng had carried her in earlier and had gone straight to his master bedroom. She hadn't had a chance to take a good look around. What are you looking at? Aren't you going to sleep? Hua Xiaoheng pointed to his bedroom. You sleep there. I'll sleep in the guest bedroom. His suite had 3 bedrooms and 2 living rooms. There was a master bedroom with a bathroom, 2 guest bedrooms that shared a bathroom, a spacious living room that served as the living room, and a fully equipped study. Gu Nianji refused. She lowered her head and followed Hua Xiaoheng. She whispered, Uncle Hua, do you really believe me? Yes, go to sleep first. We'll talk tomorrow. Hua Xiaoheng saw that she wasn't moving. He picked up her suitcase with one hand and held her arm with the other. He carried her to his master bedroom. He put down the suitcase and led Gu Nianji to his king-sized bed. Don't think about it. Go to sleep. But I really saw it. It wasn't a dream. Gu Nianji looked up and grabbed Hua Xiaoheng's wrist. And after I ran out, someone came into my bedroom. How do you know? Because the sheets were too smooth. Gu Nianji was still trembling. She stuttered as she spoke. I jumped out of bed and didn't even turn around to tidy the sheets. But when I went in just now, Uncle Hua saw it too. The sheets were neatly laid out. Only one corner was lifted. And I remember I got up in such a hurry that when I ran out, I dragged half the sheets to the floor. Hua Xiaoheng looked at her and listened to her quietly. His dark eyes were like jade and contained a hidden brilliance. He seemed to understand everything, but perhaps he didn't care. When she finished, Hua Xiaoheng moved past her and bent down to shake the sheets off the bed. He saw that there were some wrinkles on his sheets. Yes, this was the look of someone who had gotten out of bed in a hurry. Gu Nianji's bed must have been rearranged. Hua Xiaoheng quietly put her on the bed and covered her with the blanket. Be good. Go to sleep. Gu Nianji had no choice but to close her eyes. She felt Hua Xiaoheng leave the master bedroom and turn off the lights at the door before leaving. After he left, Gu Nianji opened her eyes in the darkness. If she slept alone, she was used to having a night light on. She couldn't sleep alone in the complete darkness. She tossed and turned in bed for a long time, but still couldn't fall asleep. She was also a little scared. Gu Nianji couldn't understand why something like this had happened to her first night at the Hua Manor. She recalled the woman in the white robe over and over again. She couldn't shake the feeling that she looked familiar. She had a very good memory. She could almost remember everything she saw. She had caught a glimpse of the woman in the dark, but she still firmly remembered some of the typical features of the woman's appearance. For example, her eyes were long and narrow, and her eyelashes must have been very thick. She remembered that when she looked down at her, her eyes looked like they were lined with eyeliner. Her nose was high and exquisite. It was the smoothest line. The shape of her lips was beautiful, and her skin color must have been very, very fair. Because under the dim light, Gu Nianji only thought that the woman was as white as snow. She was so beautiful that she couldn't speak. There seemed to be a timid expression on her face, but there was also curiosity. When she reached out, she probably didn't have any ill intentions towards her, right? Gu Nianji turned in bed again. She really couldn't fall asleep. Finally, she sat up and punched the bed helplessly. Then she hugged her head and spaced out. Hua Xiaoheng didn't fall asleep in the second bedroom. He could hear the slightest movement next door because he hadn't closed the door. Finally, he heard the sound of Gu Nianji punching the bed. He also couldn't fall asleep. He lifted the blankets and got up. He went to his master bedroom and turned on the lights. He saw Gu Nianji sitting on the bed hugging her legs and resting her head between her knees. Gu Nianji sensed someone coming in and immediately looked up in alarm. The lights immediately came on. Hua Xiaoheng was already walking over from the master bedroom door. Can't sleep? Choosing a bed? Hua Xiaoheng sat on the edge of the bed. The mattress actually sank deeply, and Gu Nianji felt that her center of gravity was about to be unstable. She moved closer to Hua Xiaoheng and muttered, "It's too dark in the room." Hua Xiaoheng's master bedroom, whether it was the ceiling lamp or the bedside lamp, were very bright. There weren't any dim yellow night lights that were specially used at night. Gu Nianji had fallen asleep in the suite earlier because she was tired and sleepy, but she hadn't slept for long before she started dreaming. Now that she had been messing around for a long time, she was almost awake. I'll get someone to buy night lights tomorrow. Wu Xiaoheng lifted the blankets. Go to sleep. Gu Nianji had no choice but to slide back under the blankets and look at Wu Xiaoheng eagerly. Then can you not leave? This was the first update. Today's second update was also 2 updates in one, including the first update to reward Jiu Er's spiritual pet fate. It was around 1 in the afternoon. It's the end of the month. Dear friends, vote for the Major General with your monthly and recommendation votes. Oh, intersection. Oh. Chapter 197. Wu Xiaoheng stared at Gu Nianji for a while without blinking. The silence in the bedroom was frighteningly quiet. Gu Nianji blinked and finally couldn't stand Wu Xiaoheng's stare. She looked away at the French curtains on the south wall and muttered, "You have a French window here too? I'm scared." Wu Xiaoheng turned to look and adjusted the blankets for her. "That window is bulletproof glass. Don't be scared." Gu Nianji was speechless. She closed her eyes in defeat and didn't speak again. But a hand quietly reached out from under the blankets and grabbed the corner of Wu Xiaoheng's pajamas. Wu Xiaoheng felt it as soon as he got up. He looked down at the fair hand and after a long time, he took it and put it back under the blankets. "I'm not leaving. I'll sleep on the sofa." Wu Xiaoheng's master bedroom was much larger than the one in Gu Nianji's small suite. Not only was there a desk opposite the bed, but there was also a large sofa. Gu Nianji sighed in relief and quietly opened her eyes to see Wu Xiaoheng go to the second bedroom next door to bring a blanket and pillow over. He placed it on the sofa and turned off the lights before falling asleep. Gu Nianji's nervousness quickly disappeared with Wu Xiaoheng's company in the bedroom. Drowsiness hit her like a mountain and she fell asleep almost as soon as she tilted her head. Wu Xiaoheng looked in Gu Nianji's direction from the sofa, his gaze deep and unreadable. After a long time, he closed his eyes and fell asleep. The next morning, Wu Xiaoheng woke up at 7. He was used to waking up at 6, but because he had slept late the night before, he slept an extra hour. He took his clothes to the bathroom to wash up. When he came out, he saw Gu Nianji sleeping soundly under the blankets. Her little face was blushing so red that it wasn't normal. Wu Xiaoheng's heart skipped a beat. He reached out to touch Gu Nianji's forehead and found that she really had a fever. Remembering that Gu Nianji hadn't locked the French window in her bedroom yesterday, Wu Xiaoheng knew that Gu Nianji must have caught a cold then been frightened, so she couldn't handle the fever. Gu Nianji rarely got sick and usually managed to handle a fever. Wu Xiaoheng rarely let her take medicine. He only called Chunlai to ask him what degree her fever needed to be sent to the hospital. Chunlai was very surprised that Gu Nianji had fallen sick as soon as she went to the Hua residence. He quickly said, anyone else would have been sent to the hospital if they were 39 degrees Celsius. Nianji didn't make it to 40 degrees. Nonsense, Wu Xiaoheng retorted. At 40 degrees Celsius, even if he could carry it, he would be confused. You, a Mongolian doctor, should really go back to the furnace and be reborn. Chunlai hated it when people questioned his professionalism. He was furious and rolled up his sleeves, ready to argue with Wu Xiaoheng. However, Wu Xiaoheng immediately hung up and blocked Chunlai's number so that he could not harass him. Wu Xiaoheng found a thermometer to measure the temperature of Gu Nianji's forehead. He found that it was less than 39 degrees, so he set it aside and went out for breakfast. Eldest cousin brother, you're awake? Where is Miss Gu? Wu Jialan was instructing the servants to prepare breakfast. I'm not sure what Miss Gu likes, so I asked Madame Chen to make a few dishes according to the Sea City cuisine. See if she likes it. Wu Xiaoheng wore casual clothes at home, a simple white shirt over a black t-shirt. The hem was tucked under a black military leather belt, and custom-made black wool trousers made his legs look longer. At 1.88 meters, he was much taller than Zhang Wenjie, who had just come in. Zhang Wenjie was 1.75 meters, not short, but in front of Wu Xiaoheng he was not tall enough. His body was thin and frail like a child's. He was a bit afraid to see Wu Xiaoheng, so he greeted him carefully and found a seat far away from him to sit down. Wu Xiaoheng nodded at Zhang Wenjie in a rare and pleasant manner and said, "Good morning." He then sat down and looked at the fried buns, rice balls, glutinous rice porridge, youtiao, and soy milk on the table. He even bowed to Wu Jialan and said, "Thank you." He then asked Zhang Wenjie, "Do you want some?" Zhang Wenjie, who had just arrived at the dining room, saw this scene and her eyes almost fell to the floor. The current eldest cousin brother was completely different from how he was 6 years ago. In the past he would not even look them in the eye, but now he was so polite to Zhang Wenjie and He Jialan. Of course, perhaps it was because he had become a high-ranking official that he knew how to hide his emotions, and used superficial courtesy to hide all his true emotions. Zhang Wenna understood this point. She walked over with a conflicted expression and nodded to He Xiaoheng. "Good morning, eldest cousin brother." He Xiaoheng turned to look at her. "Morning?" Zhang Wenna sat down next to Zhang Wenjie and glanced at him. Zhang Wenjie shrugged and made an "I don't know" gesture, then looked at He Xiaoheng. "Eldest cousin brother, where's Miss Gu? Why isn't she out for breakfast?" He Jialan also wanted to ask. "The fried buns won't taste good when they get cold." Before He Xiaoheng could answer, the orderlies had already brought his special breakfast over. His meals were specially prepared by the army orderlies, and even the kitchen stove was in a different place from the rest of the He family. Looking at the large medium rare steak cheese pancakes and a plate of beef buns, He Jialan's mouth twitched. "Eldest cousin brother, it's not good to eat this early in the morning. High calorie, high fat and high protein could also lead to high blood fat and cholesterol." However, she had not considered that with He Xiaoheng's daily activities in the army, he had to eat like this to ensure his nutrition. He Xiaoheng did not explain further, he only said dryly, "I've been eating like this ever since I joined the army." Zhang Wenjie was extremely envious looking at his bread and bacon. He wanted nothing more than to have a steak or beef buns. He Xiaoheng saw his envious gaze and pushed the fried bun in front of him. "Wenjie, eat this." Zhang Wenjie was flattered. "Is this really for me? Not for Miss Gu. She's sick, she doesn't eat these things." He Xiaoheng picked up his knife and fork to cut the steak as he instructed the orderlies beside him. "Call the army doctor over to treat Nianji. She'll be eating with me from now on, remember to make her an extra portion." The orderlies hurriedly agreed, then asked, "What does Miss Gu like?" "Fresher would be good. Now that she's sick, we can make it a little stronger." He Xiaoheng instructed casually as he quickly finished the steak and started on the beef buns. He Jialan rubbed her hands anxiously. "Eldest cousin brother, Miss Gu is sick? What illness?" "Fever. She caught a cold last night." He Xiaoheng finished his breakfast and drank a cup of coffee before standing up. "Enjoy your meal." When the Zhang siblings' father Zhang Baochen and mother Qian Shihui came in, He Xiaoheng had just walked out of the dining room. "Uncle Zhang and Zhang." He bowed slightly and paused in his steps before leaving. He Jialan also greeted Zhang Baochen and Qian Shihui before carrying a box of breakfast upstairs. He Xiaoheng returned to his suite and turned on his computer to work for a while before he heard the doorbell ring. The intercom said that the army doctor had arrived. He Xiaoheng got up to open the door and welcomed a female army doctor. "Ziden?" He Xiaoheng was a bit surprised. "Why are you here?" "Nianji is coming to the imperial capital to study, so Chen Lai sent me here a long time ago." Yi Zieten smiled, "But we didn't expect her to fall sick as soon as she arrived." He Xiaoheng understood now. He must have called Chen Lai and told him about Nianji's fever, so Chen Lai immediately notified Yi Zieten, who was already in the imperial capital. Chen Lai had always been Gu Nianji's doctor, with Yi Zieten helping occasionally. Yi Zieten walked in and took out a thermometer and stethoscope from the medical kit. She checked Nianji's temperature for a long time before saying, "She should be fine, it's 38.5 degrees now." He Xiaoheng nodded. "It was 39 degrees earlier, so it looks like the fever has subsided." Yi Zieten agreed, "It's best if the fever subsides on its own. If it doesn't, then take the medicine. I'll leave the fever medicine here just in case." Knowing that Nianji was fine, He Xiaoheng went to the study to work. But not long after he went in, He Jialan said over the intercom that she had something to say to him. He Xiaoheng opened the door to let her in, and the two of them talked in the small living room. "Cousin brother, Nianji stayed with you yesterday?" He Jialan poked her head in the direction of He Xiaoheng's bedroom. "Yes, she'll be staying here from now on." He Xiaoheng didn't say anything else. "It's only for a little over a week." "That's not a good idea." He Jialan objected tactfully. "Although cousin brother is Miss Gu's guardian, Miss Gu is already 18 years old. She's a big girl and she's living with you. What's wrong with that?" He Xiaoheng didn't bat an eyelid, he didn't seem to care at all. "Her condition is special, she can't be frightened. This is certified by the doctor." "Can't be frightened?" He Jialan was taken aback. "Does she also have?" "She doesn't." He Xiaoheng cut her off without hesitation, his gaze becoming stern. "She's just timid and she's still a young girl. Don't think so dirty." He Jialan almost choked on He Xiaoheng's words like she had swallowed a fly. She stood up abruptly and clenched her fists angrily. "Then I'm sorry to bother you. Cousin brother, I'm doing this for your own good. You're a major general, you can't make mistakes. There are so many eyes on you. I know. Hua Xiaoheng said dryly, you don't have to worry about me. Get out. Hua Jialan tried to persuade him a bit more, but Hua Xiaoheng had already gone to the study without looking back, leaving Hua Jialan alone in the living room. She remained silent for a while, but didn't dare go to Hua Xiaoheng's bedroom to look for Gu Nianji. In the end she left sullenly. Gu Nianji slept until the sun was setting, and only woke up at almost 5 p.m. She was drenched in sweat, and her fever had completely subsided, but her body was still sweaty and uncomfortable. Her mind was still groggy from the fever, and she sat up lazily to stretch. She took off her sweaty pajamas. Hua Xiaoheng heard her wake up and quickly walked in to tell her something, but saw her fair breasts jiggling like a bunny when he entered the room. He immediately turned and backed away, closing the bedroom door tightly at the same time. When Gu Nianji heard the sound of the door closing, she realized that she wasn't in her own bedroom, but Hua Xiaoheng's. She quickly put on her sweaty pajamas and got out of bed to open the bedroom door. Uncle Hua, what's up? Hua Xiaoheng stood with his back to her. He didn't even turn around when he heard her come out. He said, it's already evening. Hurry up and get changed for dinner. With that, he walked directly to the study and slammed the door shut. Gu Nianji was a bit surprised. It's already evening? Did I sleep the whole day? Seeing that the door to Hua Xiaoheng's study was tightly shut, she didn't want to disturb him. She quickly found her suitcase, opened it, and took out her underwear and jacket. She carried them to the bathroom to shower. When she came out, she found that the door to Hua Xiaoheng's study was already open, but he wasn't inside. He must have gone to eat dinner. Gu Nianji found her slippers and put them on. She also left Hua Xiaoheng's suite to go to the dining room for dinner. It was the time for the orderlies to change shifts. When Gu Nianji came out, she didn't see anyone standing guard at the door. She followed the path she remembered and walked to the living room. If she remembered correctly, the dining room was on the other side of the living room. She walked down a long hallway and was about to turn right when she caught a glimpse of a woman wearing a complicated pink cardigan and a pink wool skirt standing at the end of a small alley on her left. She took a few steps forward and suddenly remembered something. She whipped her head around to look again. That woman was clearly the woman in the white robe who had appeared in her bedroom yesterday. Gu Nianji blinked. The woman was still standing in front of the window at the end of the alley, looking at her with a smile. Who are you? Gu Nianji couldn't help but walk over. Are you also a member of the Hua family? As she walked closer, Gu Nianji discovered that the woman was a bit older, but she was definitely no older than 30. She had delicate and fair skin, bright and moving features, and a bit of innocence and shyness in her expression. She looked like an 18 or 19-year-old girl. If it weren't for the slight crow's feet at the corners of her eyes, Gu Nianji really would have thought the woman was her age. The woman saw Gu Nianji walk over and said quietly, "Your dress is so pretty." Gu Nianji had just changed into a light purple Chanel sheath dress she had taken out of her suitcase. Naturally, Chanel's clothes were different. Young people didn't look old in them, and older people looked elegant and calm in them, making it impossible to tell their age. Gu Nianji looked at the woman's envious eyes and smiled. "You're so pretty. I've never seen someone so beautiful. Are you a member of the Hua family?" The woman blinked. A member of the Hua family? A faint blush appeared on her face and her voice grew softer. "I want to be a member of the Hua family too. But Guanchen said I can't get married until I'm 18. I have to wait until I'm 22. Gu Nianji froze. Guanchen? If she remembered correctly, Hua Xiaoheng's father was Hua Guanchen. But this woman, no matter how she looked at it, was older than 18. "You're saying you're only 18? That's why you can't get married?" Gu Nianji asked suspiciously. "What's your name? Were you the one who went to my bedroom yesterday?" The woman tilted her head and thought about it. "What's my name?" "Song Jining." "Yes, that's my name." "I went to your bedroom?" "No, that's my own room." Gu Nianji was surprised. Remembering that she was going to have dinner, she said to the woman, "Miss Song, right? Have you had dinner? Come have dinner with me." As she spoke, she extended her hand to Song Jining. Song Jining hesitated, but still slowly reached out to take Gu Nianji's hand. Her hand was indeed very cold. Gu Nianji led her to the dining room. They walked into the dining room hand in hand and everyone inside stood up in shock. Hua Jialan even rushed over and took Song Jinning's hand from Gu Nianji's. "Second aunt, why are you here again?" She then scolded the servants. "How are you working? You can't even look after a patient." This was the second update and also the first two updates combined, including the first update to reward Chiyu, the leader of the alliance. It's the end of the month, so please vote for the Major General. Oh, intersection. Oh. Chapter 198. Song Jining looked extremely uneasy. Her beautiful phoenix eyes quickly welled up with tears. She looked like she was about to burst into tears. She timidly glanced at Hua Guanchen, but Hua Guanchen was still sitting next to Grandfather Hua with a frown on his face. He had no intention of looking at her. Song Jining's eyes became even more watery. Auntie Xing, Auntie Yu, hurry up and take second aunt upstairs. Hua Jialan scrambled to take Song Jining away. Gu Nianji couldn't help being shocked when she heard Hua Jialan call her second aunt. Hua Xiaoheng's father, Hua Guanchen, was Hua Jialan's second uncle. So this second aunt was Hua Guanchen's wife? Looking at her age, she couldn't be older than 30. So she couldn't be Hua Xiaoheng's biological mother? Gu Nianji's mind raced as she stole a glance at Hua Xiaoheng. Hua Xiaoheng was sitting with his back to them. He didn't turn around, so Gu Nianji couldn't see his expression. She only felt his back straighten. Gu Nianji rarely saw Hua Xiaoheng so serious. She turned to look at Song Jining again. Song Jining saw that Gu Nianji was the only one in the room looking at her intently. She looked at her pleadingly. Gu Nianji was no stranger to this kind of panicked and helpless expression. When she had just narrowly escaped a car accident, she often saw herself in the mirror with this kind of panicked expression. It was like she didn't fit in with the world. She instinctively squeezed Song Jining's hand and turned to Hua Jialan. She asked gently, "Sister Lan, what illness does Mrs. Hua have? I don't think she has a fever." In Gu Nianji's mind, only a fever could be considered an illness. Hua Jialan stared at Gu Nianji in shock for a while before shaking her head. She doesn't have a fever, but she's definitely sick. Really? Gu Nianji pitted Song Jining even more. What illness? I'm not sick. Song Jining muttered indignantly. I'm not sick, she repeated to Gu Nianji. Tears were about to fall from her eyes, but she insisted that she wasn't sick. Yes, I believe you. Gu Nianji squeezed her hand again and felt that she was probably the only one who didn't know about this. No one in the restaurant spoke, so they were probably really sick. However, looking at the woman's expression, Gu Nianji really couldn't think of what kind of illness could be like this. Song Jining could speak clearly, recognize the road, and talk to people. If she was mentally ill, it would be impossible. Gu Nianji had seen Xinlai's cameo as a psychiatrist before, so she had read many psychology books. She was no stranger to the evaluation and diagnosis of mental illness. Do you really believe me? Song Jining was a little excited. Do you really believe me? Before Gu Nianji could reply, Hua Jialan suddenly asked, Second aunt, how old are you? 18. I'm 18. What's wrong? Song Jining looked at Hua Jialan in confusion. Haven't you asked me that many times? Hua Jialan crossed her arms and looked at Gu Nianji. She raised her chin. See, that's her illness. I still don't understand. Gu Nianji shook her head. Can you explain more? My second aunt thinks she's always 18. It's been more than a decade and she hasn't changed. My second aunt is actually almost 50 years old. Hua Jialan didn't expect Gu Nianji to be so insistent. She thought Gu Nianji was being too nosy and frowned. However, she still explained Song Jining's illness. In front of so many members of the Hua family, Song Jining was already giving Hua Xiaoheng face by not saying that she was mentally ill. However, Gu Nianji wasn't stupid, so she should be able to understand what she was implying, right? So her real age was almost 50. That must be Hua Xiaoheng's biological mother. Gu Nianji smiled and said to Hua Jialan, Are you serious? If this is an illness, then almost all women in the world are mentally ill. What do you mean? This time it was Hua Jialan's turn to be confused. She had clearly said it, so why didn't Gu Nianji understand? The Hua family had hidden Song Jining well all these years and hired people to take care of her. They didn't want her to go out and embarrass herself. You don't understand? Gu Nianji pulled Song Jining's hand away from Hua Jialan's and said with a smile, Don't most women think they'll always be 18? It's just that most people don't say it out loud. Gu Nianji held Song Jining's hand and said with a smile, I'm the same as you. I also want to be 18 forever. Don't worry, I'll be sick with you. Song Jining's uneasiness was immediately alleviated. She immediately felt wronged. Really? You're 18 too? That's great, I tell them so many times every day but they don't believe me. They even say I'm sick. Her eyes were rimmed with tears. Yes, of course I believe you. These people don't understand the world of forever 18-year-olds. But it's okay, who needs them to understand? Whatever we say is what we say. If you say you're 18 then you're 18. Whoever doesn't believe me can hang themselves. Who cares about them? Song Jining was ecstatic when she heard Gu Nianji's words. She wrapped both hands around Gu Nianji's hand and said, "No need to hang yourself. Even if you don't believe me, you don't have to hang yourself. I just want one person to believe me. I believe you completely." Gu Nianji pulled Song Jining to the dining table and said, "Come, have dinner with everyone. If anyone says you're sick, I'll take care of them for you." She glanced at Huo Jialan with a smile. Huo Jialan shook her head with a wry smile. She walked over to Grandfather Hua and Huo Guanchen and said awkwardly, "Grandfather, second uncle, what do you think we should do? Second aunt's illness has never been good, and now someone is adding fuel to the fire and going crazy with her. Won't it worsen her illness?" "I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy." Song Jining screamed, clutching her head. Perhaps it was the word crazy that Huo Jialan had said that agitated her. Gu Nianji quickly coaxed her, Okay, you're not crazy, you're not crazy." Song Jining immediately snuggled into Gu Nianji's arms and trembled. "Sister Lan, don't say that. I really don't think it's crazy to think that you'll always be 18. Gu Nianji shot Huo Jialan a disapproving look and immediately changed the subject. "Sister Lan, hurry up and serve the dishes. Everyone's hungry. What's for dinner?" Gu Nianji's seat was next to Huo Xiaoheng, so the seat next to her was given to Song Jining. Song Jining sat on the other side of Zhang Wenna. She watched with interest as Gu Nianji coaxed Song Jining, and looked meaningfully at her parents. The corners of Huo Jialan's mouth twitched. She hadn't expected Gu Nianji to turn the tables so quickly, but she didn't mind and immediately ordered the kitchen to serve the dishes. She walked over to Huo Xiaoheng and whispered, "Cousin brother, shouldn't you discipline Miss Gu a little?" Huo Xiaoheng's gaze had been fixed on Gu Nianji, and when he heard Huo Jialan's words, he raised his hand in objection. "No need. Serve the dishes." Gu Nianji gently patted Song Jining's back as she spoke to her softly. Song Jining gradually calmed down and sat up straight. She smiled at Gu Nianji fawningly and asked, "What do you like to eat?" "I know how to cook. I'll make it for you tomorrow?" Gu Nianji quickly nodded. "I must try Mrs. Hua's cooking tomorrow." Song Jining blushed slightly and quickly glanced at Huo Guanchen sitting across from her. She leaned over to Gu Nianji's ear and whispered, "I'm not married yet, so I'm not Mrs. Hua yet." She paused, then continued shyly, "But I'm very happy that you call me Mrs. Hua." Her pale cheeks were flushed, and her eyes were like limpid autumn waters, sparkling. She looked like a young girl who had just fallen in love. Gu Nianji looked at her skin and remembered Huo Jialan saying Song Jining was almost 50. She asked enviously, "Mrs. Hua, you take care of your skin so well. How do you do it? Can you share?" Song Jining was particularly interested in this topic and rambled on about how to take care of her skin. She then asked Gu Nianji about the brand of clothes and where she bought them. Gu Nianji discussed clothes, shoes, and bags enthusiastically with her, and suddenly discovered that they had a lot in common. ===. It was her first time at the Hua residence, and she didn't know that this was the first time Song Jining had spoken so much in over a decade since she got sick. Moreover, her manner and intonation were completely normal. Grandfather Hua and Huo Guanchen were both shocked and looked at them with complicated expressions. Finally they looked at Huo Xiaoheng. This was the first update. Today's second update was also 2 updates in one, including the second update to reward Jiu and Chiue for the spiritual pet affinity. It was around 1 p.m. Today is Monday, my dear friends. Let's vote for the Major General. Especially the recommendation votes. Thank you very much. Chapter 199. The corners of Huo Xiaoheng's lips relaxed, but there was no obvious smile. Sensing Grandfather Hua and Huo Guanchen looking at him, Huo Xiaoheng looked up to meet their gazes. "What's up?" Grandfather Hua wanted to say something, but seeing Huo Xiaoheng's protective expression, he could only swallow his words and pick up his chopsticks. "Let's eat, everyone. Let's eat, let's eat." Huo Guanchen, Uncle Zhang and Aunt Zhang quickly picked up their chopsticks as well. Zhang Wenna and Zhang Wenjie smiled and whispered to Gu Nianji, "Miss Gu, let's eat." The Hua family had a strict rule of not talking while eating. Gu Nianji used to be like this when she was with Huo Xiaoheng, but this time she was chatting happily with Song Jining and reluctantly picked up her chopsticks. Song Jining heard it and whispered to Gu Nianji with a smile, "Let's talk after dinner." Okay. Gu Nianji nodded firmly. There were dozens of dishes on the rectangular walnut table, but each had their own place. Grandfather Hua, Huo Guanchen and Huo Xiaoheng each had 3 dishes and 1 soup in front of them, so they had to eat by themselves. Gu Nianji also had 3 dishes and 1 soup in front of her, which Hua Xiaoheng had specifically instructed his orderlies to make. Everyone else had the Hua family's cook. Song Jinning's food was usually served upstairs, but this time, Gu Nianji asked her to stay and brought the food over. Gu Nianji looked at Song Jinning carefully and saw that she ate very elegantly. She pursed her lips tightly as she chewed and ate in small mouthfuls. She also used chopsticks skillfully. The way she ate was very similar to Hua Xiaoheng. Gu Nianji had learned the way she ate from Hua Xiaoheng. Now that she was sitting next to Song Jinning, she suddenly realized where Hua Xiaoheng had learned his eating habits from. Thinking about how Hua Xiaoheng's mother had become like this, Gu Nianji suddenly felt depressed and only ate quietly. She didn't want to talk even when drinking tea after eating. Song Jinning had finally found someone who was willing to talk to her and listen to her after all these years, so she was very attached to Gu Nianji. She looked at her eagerly and even personally picked up the red clay teapot to pour tea for her. Gu Nianji was shocked and quickly took the teapot. "Mrs. Hua, let me do it." Song Jinning smiled at her. "What's your name?" "My name is Gu Nianji." Gu Nianji looked down to pour tea for Song Jinning, then poured a cup for herself. Just as she was about to drink, Hua Xiaoheng took the teacup from her hand and said dryly, "You're going to sleep at night, so you shouldn't drink tea." Gu Nianji replied with an "oh," and remembered that she had slept the entire day. If she still drank tea now, she wouldn't be able to sleep tonight. Thus she stopped drinking. Song Jinning looked at Hua Xiaoheng shyly, then whispered in Gu Nianji's ear, "Is he your boyfriend?" Gu Nianji was speechless. Her face flushed uncontrollably and her big misty eyes looked dreamy. She looked like she was drunk. However, she could feel Hua Xiaoheng's gaze piercing into her back like a needle. Gu Nianji could only put on a smile that was uglier than crying and shook her head lightly. "He's not my boyfriend." "Then he's your husband?" Song Jinning asked curiously and stared at Hua Xiaoheng from head to toe. "He's really good looking. He's a good match for you." "Ah?" Gu Nianji stared blankly at Song Jinning and suddenly understood a cruel truth. Since Song Jinning didn't remember being married, then she probably didn't remember having a child, right? Then did she not remember that Hua Xiaoheng was her biological son? This realization made Gu Nianji gasp. She turned around, her eyes filled with sympathy and pity as she stared at Hua Xiaoheng. Hua Xiaoheng glanced at her and instantly understood what was going on in her little head. He couldn't help but feel a headache coming on. When he was younger, he might have felt resentful because of this, but now he was so strong that he didn't need to rely on anyone or any emotions to support himself. "It's getting late. Rest early." Hua Xiaoheng stood up and casually pulled Gu Nianji up. "You haven't done your homework yet. School is about to start, go back and do it." Gu Nianji was tongue-tied. She really wanted to say when did she have homework. But Hua Xiaoheng glanced at her and she immediately lost her temper. She smiled sheepishly at Song Jinning. "Mrs. Hua, I have to go back and do my homework. I'll play with you tomorrow?" Song Jinning was a little afraid of Hua Xiaoheng. When he looked at her, Song Jinning turned away uncomfortably. "Okay, I'll talk to you tomorrow." Song Jinning stood up as well. Hua Jialan quickly walked over to hold her arm but smiled without saying anything. She walked her upstairs. Gu Nianji politely said goodbye to Grandfather Hua and Hua Guanshan, then said goodbye to Uncle Zhang, Aunt Zhang, Zhang Wenna and Zhang Wenjia one by one before following Hua Xiaoheng back to his suite. Hua Xiaoheng closed the door as soon as they entered. The suite's soundproofing was too good. Even if there was a gunfight outside, it wouldn't necessarily be heard inside. Once inside, Gu Nianji dropped her pretense and looked up at Hua Xiaoheng with displeasure. "Hua Xiao, when did I have homework? Why didn't I know?" "Call me uncle." Hua Xiaoheng instinctively reminded her. He didn't want to argue with her about homework. It was just an excuse. He didn't need to explain. Hua Xiaoheng walked to the study alone. He reminded her, "Rest early? Your fever just subsided." Gu Nianji glared at Hua Xiaoheng's back. She couldn't believe he just left like that. But she didn't dare chase after him to his study. When she lived with Hua Xiaoheng in the past, his study was forbidden to her. She couldn't go there unless he told her to. Gu Nianji stomped her feet and went to the master bedroom to wash up. As she changed into her pajamas, she remembered something. She ran to Hua Xiaoheng's study and knocked on the door. "Come in. The door isn't locked." Hua Xiaoheng's voice came from the study. Gu Nianji pushed the door gently. It opened. It wasn't locked. Hua Xiaoheng looked up from behind the desk. The sleeves of his white shirt were rolled up to his elbows, revealing his strong arms. The round collar of his black t-shirt revealed his exquisite collarbones. His dark, jade-like eyes looked at her quietly. "What's up?" Gu Nianji pointed at the black t-shirt at Hua Xiaoheng's collar. Uncle Hua, you promised to give me a few more of those t-shirts to make pajamas for when we got back. Hua Xiaoheng thought about it. I brought a few over, but they're not new. Not new. Gu Nianji's eyes lit up. Old is good. Old is more comfortable. I like old. Hua Xiaoheng looked at her in disbelief. He looked down and typed on the computer keyboard. They're in the cabinet in the master bedroom. Go look for them yourself. Gu Nianji agreed happily and turned to leave. Hua Xiaoheng suddenly remembered something. He quickly got up from behind the desk and caught up to Gu Nianji. I'll get them for you. Gu Nianji had no choice but to follow him into the master bedroom. Hua Xiaoheng personally opened the master bedroom closet and found 3 black t-shirts for her. They were all worn, but they were clean and smelled like they had been dried. You can use this closet. Hua Xiaoheng moved his things out of the right closet and stuffed them into the left one. His clothes were very simple. They were all issued by the military. There was a winter uniform, a general's uniform, and a regular uniform. His overcoat was hung separately in the other closet, so it was easy to pack. Gu Nianji brought her suitcase over and said hesitantly, but I'll be leaving after a few days. Uncle Hua doesn't have to make room for me in the closet, right? Hua Xiaoheng's hand paused. He pursed his lips and turned around. He said calmly, you'll be studying for 3 years in the imperial capital. You'll have plenty of time to come back. But, Gu Nianji gritted her teeth and fought back. I'm already 18. Uncle Hua, you're no longer my guardian. I'm not your guardian, but I'm still your uncle. Hua Xiaoheng put his hands in his trouser pockets and leaned against the closet. The white light spilled over his head, accentuating his handsome features. Gu Nianji looked at him almost greedily. She didn't dare to argue and didn't want to. Her courage evaporated under Hua Xiaoheng's brooding gaze. She looked down and crossed her arms in front of her chest. Fine. I'll let you go. Hua Xiaoheng saw her pitiful expression and couldn't just walk away. He thought about it and sat on the sofa. He waved at Gu Nianji. Come here. Gu Nianji turned her head to look at him. She didn't want to go over. Uncle Hua, what's the matter? Just tell me. I can hear you. Hua Xiaoheng didn't force her. He rubbed his temples and finally started talking about the day's events. Nianji, about my mother. Gu Nianji perked up and walked over to sit next to Hua Xiaoheng. She took his arm and said, Song Jining is really your mother? Your biological mother, right? Yes. Hua Xiaoheng leaned forward. He clasped his hands together and rested his elbows on his knees. He looked straight ahead. Thank you for talking to her today. But don't do it again. Why? Since she's sick, can't talking to her help her recover? Gu Nianji didn't understand. She knew that psychiatrists had an important treatment method. It was to let patients talk as much as possible in a relaxed environment. Talking was a way to confide and to relieve stress. The problem is, Hua Xiaoheng looked at her. She'll forget what she said today after she sleeps. She won't even recognize you. You'll have to reintroduce yourself and tell her what you said today. How many people do you think have the patience to repeat this process every day? Gu Nianji patted her chest. So Auntie Song has short-term memory loss. No. Hua Xiaoheng looked up and sighed. 16 years ago, something happened in our family. My mother suddenly fainted. When she woke up, she only remembered what happened before she was 18 years old. She thought she had always been 18. Every day after that, she would forget what happened the day before. Gradually, no one in the Hua family spoke to her or paid attention to her anymore. They could only provide her with good food and drinks, and have a doctor come to check on her regularly. Other than that, she lived in the Hua family's mansion like she didn't exist. Gu Nianji gripped Hua Xiaoheng's arm sympathetically. She doesn't remember you either, right? Yes. Hua Xiaoheng turned to look at her. But it's okay. It doesn't affect me. Don't think too much about it. Gu Nianji was speechless. Fine, since the powerful Uncle Hua didn't need anyone's sympathy, Gu Nianji could only rub her nose. I understand. But she thought about it and said, you said Auntie Song will forget what happened the day before the next day, but I don't think that's necessarily true. Hua Xiaoheng didn't say anything, nor did he correct her. He only looked at her inquiringly. She was the woman who barged into my bedroom last night. Gu Nianji's eyes locked with Hua Xiaoheng's. You knew about it yesterday, didn't you? That was why he didn't let anyone investigate further. Gu Nianji's bedroom was on the first floor, and the south wall was lined with floor-to-ceiling windows. For some reason, the windows weren't locked and could be opened from the outside. Song Jining had snuck in at some point and sat by Gu Nianji's bed to look at her. However, it had snowed almost all night last night, so Song Jining must have left footprints in the snow when she came in. Therefore, the street lights outside were appropriately broken, so no one would be able to see the footprints in the snow for the time being. By this morning, the snow had already erased Song Jinning's footprints from last night, so the incident could be covered up. So Auntie Song wasn't the only one at fault when she came to my room yesterday. Someone did it on purpose. Gu Nianji concluded. I don't know why this person would do such a thing. Hua Xiaoheng was silent for a long time before replying, most of it is correct. But Gu Nianji wasn't done. When I came out for dinner this evening, I ran into Auntie Song in the hallway again. I think she remembers me. The look in her eyes and her interest in me shows that she doesn't know anything about what happened yesterday. Hua Xiaoheng's brows furrowed. Are you serious? Yes, I swear on my honor. Gu Nianji nodded solemnly. Uncle Hua, you know that my instincts are very accurate. Your instincts? Hua Xiaoheng gave her a sidelong glance. His gaze was almost condescending. Gu Nianji braced herself. Isn't that right? Aren't my instincts very accurate? Hua Xiaoheng pursed his lips and looked away. Go to sleep. Tomorrow? He paused. I'll take you to see my mother tomorrow. Gu Nianji's heart leaped with joy. She nodded profusely. Okay. I was planning on buying Auntie Song a Chanel set for New Year. Yes, use this card. Hua Xiaoheng took out a card he had prepared for a long time from his trouser pocket. Use this card to buy things for you from now on. I don't need it. Gu Nianji quickly declined. I have scholarships and subsidies. It's enough for me to get by. Hua Xiaoheng flicked the black card. He looked down at her. How many scholarships do you have? Tens of thousands a year. Gu Nianji murmured. There's also subsidies. It's about 2,000 a month. That's enough to eat in the cafeteria. I'll also work part-time. He Jichu had once said that if she helped with cases, she would get a commission. The Chanel set you're wearing is worth more than tens of thousands. Hua Xiaoheng glanced at her. He took her hand and placed the black card in her soft, fair palm. Take it. Be good. This was the second update, and also the second update of 2 updates in one. It included the second update of Chiue, the leader of the alliance, Jiuer's spiritual pet affinity. Today is Monday, my dear friends. Let's vote for the Major General. Especially the recommendation votes. Thank you, dear friends. Oh, __. Oh. Chapter 200. The shiny black credit card lay in Gu Nianji's delicate palm. The contrast between black and white was striking. Gu Nianji felt like she was holding a hot potato. She really wanted to return the card, but when she looked up at Hua Xiaoheng's handsome face and saw the unquestionable, undeniable expression on his face, Gu Nianji felt her legs go weak. She stood in front of Hua Xiaoheng with her hands spread, her expression conflicted and happy. Her eyelashes fluttered like butterflies, fanning huge waves in his heart. Hua Xiaoheng turned his head away, his hands itching to smoke. He took out a pack of cigarettes from his trouser pocket, his slender fingers fiddling with the pack as he debated whether or not to smoke. Gu Nianji's gaze was involuntarily drawn to his hands. His flawless hands, every joint had the word perfect written all over them. She wanted nothing more than to touch them to erase all the regrets of her life. The undisguised obsession and greed in Gu Nianji's eyes suddenly delighted Hua Xiaoheng. He leaned forward slightly and lowered his head to bring the cigarette pack to Gu Nianji's eyes. What are you looking at? His voice rose slightly at the end, his deep, mellow male voice slid past Gu Nianji's ear. Her earlobes and neck blushed. Gu Nianji took a step back in panic, afraid that Hua Xiaoheng would see through her thoughts. She stumbled back and stammered. Uncle Hua wants to smoke? I'll light the fire for you. She looked up at Hua Xiaoheng with sparkling eyes, trying her best to hide her fluctuating emotions. Did he even need to light the fire? Hua Xiaoheng stared at her misty, wet eyes and slowly put the pack of cigarettes back into his trouser pocket. You were looking at the pack? Yes. Gu Nianji nodded quickly and found the worst excuse. It's late, I have to sleep. Uncle Hua. She looked up at Hua Xiaoheng. Where are you sleeping today? The guest bedroom. Hua Xiaoheng straightened up and turned to leave. Gu Nianji had no reason to keep him in the master bedroom this time. Sigh. But after changing into Hua Xiaoheng's t-shirt as pajamas, she was satisfied. She slept soundly under the soft, white goose down comforter. It was a dreamless night and he woke up at 7 the next morning. After washing up, she opened the bedroom door to see that Hua Xiaoheng was already up. He was fully dressed and standing in front of the bookshelf in the study, flipping through a document. The door of the study was wide open, facing the door of the master bedroom. Today Hua Xiaoheng was still wearing his regular clothes, dark gray custom-made thin wool trousers. The seams of the trousers were as straight as a pole. He had a dark brown military leather belt around his waist and a navy blue fine wool shirt tucked into the belt. His broad back was a breathtaking inverted V in Gu Nianji's eyes. Hua Xiaoheng leisurely turned around and saw her standing at the door to the master bedroom. He nodded and said, "You're up? Let's go to the third floor after breakfast." His mother, Song Jining, lived on the third floor. Gu Nianji composed herself and gave Hua Xiaoheng a big smile. "Let's go together?" Hua Xiaoheng thought about it and put the document back. He walked out of the study, closed the door and walked out with her. As soon as they stepped out, they saw Hua Jialan talking to the orderly standing guard at the door. "Good morning, Auntie Lan." Gu Nianji greeted her obediently. Hua Jialan looked up to see Hua Xiaoheng and Gu Nianji walking out together. She immediately smiled. "Miss Gu, you're up so early? Why don't you sleep a little longer?" She then said to Hua Xiaoheng, "Good morning, cousin brother." "Morning." Hua Xiaoheng appeared to be in a good mood. "Is breakfast ready?" "Yes, it's in the dining room," Hua Jialan said as she turned to walk with Hua Xiaoheng. "Cousin brother, how many days are you staying at home this time? Grandfather and second uncle were just discussing that you haven't been back for a few years. Since you're coming home for New Year's this year, should we invite friends and family over to celebrate?" Gu Nianji walked behind them, enjoying herself. She didn't look around too obviously, but when she passed by the junction in the corridor where she had seen Song Jining yesterday, she couldn't help glancing at the window at the end of the junction. There was no one standing there today. "Look at your feet when you're walking. Why are you looking around?" Although Hua Xiaoheng and Hua Jialan were walking in front, his eyes never left Gu Nianji. He turned around to urge her. Gu Nianji quickly caught up with him. She smiled. "Uncle Hua, your house is too big. I'm afraid I'll get lost. That's why I'm memorizing the way." Hua Jialan smiled. "You don't have to. If you're worried about getting lost, just get a servant to lead the way." "That's so troublesome." Gu Nianji shook her head with a smile. "I can do this kind of thing myself. It's no trouble at all." Hua Jialan chuckled. "There's a lot of servants at home. It'd be a waste if you didn't ask them to do something." Gu Nianji chuckled. She didn't say anything else. The three of them sat down in the dining room. Breakfast was already laid out. Hua Xiaoheng had his usual high-calorie, high-fat and high-protein meals. Gu Nianji had toast, fried eggs and milk. She didn't like Western-style breakfasts. She didn't exercise as much as Hua Xiaoheng, so she ate reluctantly. She only had a piece of toast and milk. Hua Jialan saw this and pointed at her plate with a smile. "You can't eat? Not to your liking?" "Oh, I just recovered. My appetite hasn't improved yet." Gu Nianji smiled at Hua Jialan. Hua Xiaoheng finished his portion and took the rest of Gu Nianji's breakfast to eat. Zhang Wenna and Zhang Wenjie stared at the table. Hua Jialan was also shocked. She looked at Hua Xiaoheng, who was calm and collected. She then looked at Gu Nianji, who looked as if it was only natural. Her brows furrowed. Breakfast was usually shared among the young people of their generation. Grandfather Hua Guanchen, Uncle Zhang, and Aunt Zhang didn't come down for breakfast. They ate in their rooms. Of course, Song Jining usually didn't eat in the dining room for 3 meals a day. Last night was an exception. After breakfast, Hua Xiaoheng took Gu Nianji to the third floor to see Song Jining. Hua Jialan was about to follow, but Hua Guanchen called out to her. "Jialan, what gifts did the Shues give last New Year? Do you have a list?" Hua Jialan quickly replied. "Second uncle, I do. I'll go get it for you right away." Hua Guanchen nodded. "Hurry up, I still have something to do." Hua Jialan had no choice but to hurry to the studio on the first floor to look for the list of gifts from last New Year. Hua Xiaoheng and Gu Nianji arrived at the third floor. They followed the corridor and saw a cleverly hidden staircase in the innermost walk-in closet. Gu Nianji looked at the staircase and gasped in amazement. "I didn't expect the third floor to be so special." The third floor wasn't actually one story. It was a duplex with 2 stories. However, from the outside the building only had 3 stories. Gu Nianji followed Hua Xiaoheng up the stairs. This floor was also like a loft. It wasn't as tall as the floors below. Hua Xiaoheng's 1.88-meter frame was almost touching the ceiling as he walked in the middle. Such a stifling space would probably be even more stifling for the mentally ill Song Jining. Gu Nianji sighed inwardly. She followed Hua Xiaoheng to a ajar door. A woman was speaking inside. "Mrs. Song, what are you doing in the kitchen so early in the morning? Tell me what you want to eat. I'll get the main kitchen downstairs to make it." Song Jining didn't speak, but the aroma of food wafted out. Gu Nianji's heart skipped a beat. She walked past Hua Xiaoheng and smiled brightly. "Good morning, Mrs. Hua." She entered a small room that looked like a living room. There was a door on the east wall. A middle-aged woman dressed in a white shirt and black pants came out from the door. She froze when she saw Gu Nianji. Then she saw Hua Xiaoheng behind Gu Nianji. She quickly bowed. "Hua Xiao, Miss Gu." Hua Xiaoheng didn't speak. He stood behind Gu Nianji in silence. Song Jining also came out from the door when she heard the noise. She froze when she saw Gu Nianji's smiling face. "Who are you?" Gu Nianji had learned to be familiar with people very well. She said calmly, "I'm Gu Nianji. Mrs. Hua, you said you were going to cook for me yesterday. I remember it." Song Jining looked at her blankly and muttered to herself, "Did I say that? But I can't remember." She tried hard to remember. Her expression was pained. She hugged her head and didn't know what to do. She looked up and saw Hua Xiaoheng. Instinctively afraid of him, she shrank back. Gu Nianji took her hand. "Don't think about it if you can't remember. Just pretend I'm here to freeload off Mrs. Hua's food today. To be honest, I haven't had my fill yet." She had been full when she smelled the food earlier. But now she was hungry when she smelled the food. Gu Nianji couldn't help swallowing. Song Jining was infected by her relaxed attitude. She leaned over and asked, "Are you really hungry?" "Yes, very, very hungry." Gu Nianji took her hand and turned to the small door. "Is this your kitchen?" They were greeted by a very simple kitchen. There was only one stove on the stove, and a pot of white porridge was simmering on it. The smell of food was coming from the porridge. Gu Nianji looked down and couldn't help swallowing again. The porridge was cooked too well. The rice grains were almost all broken in the pot, but the grains were distinct and didn't mix. Song Jining was amused by her gluttonous expression. She scooped a bowl for her. "Eat if you're hungry. There's more in the pot." As she spoke, she looked at Hua Xiaoheng, who had followed her in silently. She asked him timidly, do you want some?" Hua Xiaoheng nodded. Song Jining quickly scooped another bowl for him. Gu Nianji and Hua Xiaoheng sat at the small kitchen table and ate the porridge facing each other. The porridge was cooked so well that the oil was even coming out. It was moist and glutinous, and the natural fragrance of the rice was melted into the porridge. There were no seasonings or additions. It was just the heat and rice alone. It was truly the best porridge. Gu Nianji's bowl wasn't enough, so she ate another bowl. Song Jining's small pot was almost empty. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Hua. I should have left some for you." Gu Nianji apologized shyly. These 2 bowls of porridge were the best food she had eaten in the past 2 days. They were also the food that made her feel truly full. Song Jining smiled happily and said, it's okay. As long as you like it. I have more food. This was specially prepared for you." "I told you. You actually remember what you said yesterday." Gu Nianji hugged Song Jining's arm happily. "Then how about this? I ate the food you cooked, so I'll cook for you too, okay?" Song Jining nodded repeatedly. "Sure. What can you cook?" Gu Nianji actually didn't know how to cook anything except instant noodles. Of course, Hua Xiaoheng wouldn't let her cook instant noodles for his mother at home. He glanced at her. "You go out with her. I'll cook." This was the first 3,000-word update. Today's second update was also 2 updates in one, including the first update to reward Ren Xiaoyao 2722's Chiyue with spiritual pet fate. It was around 1 p.m. It was the last 2 days of the month. Everyone, please vote for the Major General. Chapter 201. Hua Xiaoheng was going to cook for her. Gu Nianji was excited. She had eaten Hua Xiaoheng's cooking when she was 12 years old. After that, she ate in the military cafeteria. Although it was specially provided for generals, it was always cooked in large pots. It wasn't as good as Hua Xiaoheng's cooking. "Mrs. Hua, let's go out quickly. It's too narrow in here for Uncle Hua to turn around." Gu Nianji happily coaxed Song Jining out. They went to the living room outside and continued to have a friendly conversation about clothes, shoes, bags and other topics of mutual interest. The more they talked, the more Gu Nianji was certain that Song Jining's memory had stopped at 18 years old. It had been almost 30 years since then. Some of the brands she was familiar with no longer existed. She knew nothing about the new brands that appeared later. What kind of illness was this? How could she remember things before she was 18, but forget things that happened after she turned 18? And every day after that, she would forget what happened the day before, except for things that happened before she turned 18. Gu Nianji planned to ask Chen Lai about Song Jining's condition when she had time. They talked outside for less than half an hour when a fragrant aroma wafted over from the small kitchen. Gu Nianji's taste glands secreted saliva. She was hungry. Why did it smell so good? It was the aroma of pure food. There were green beans, seafood, and probably eggs. Gu Nianji sniffed and couldn't help feeling her way to the kitchen door. Wu Xiaoheng was scooping fried rice with a spatula. He turned to see Gu Nianji poking her head in and raised an eyebrow. "You can still eat?" Gu Nianji nodded. "Yes, yes." Wu Xiaoheng calmly turned to get a small bowl and ladled her a small bowl of Sanxian fried rice. Song Jining followed him in and timidly stood behind Gu Nianji, not daring to walk forward. Wu Xiaoheng looked at her and didn't say anything. He just placed a white orchid porcelain plate on the table. There was a small pile of golden fried rice on the plate. The rice grains were plump and golden, and each grain was soaked in egg juice. The fresh green beans were sweet and refreshing. Although the prawns were defrosted, they were marinated with a little yellow wine, so they were very delicious and didn't smell fishy at all. Gu Nianji finished the small bowl of Sanxian fried rice in 2 mouthfuls. She wanted to lick the bowl again even after she was done. It was simply too delicious. The taste seemed to have some sort of magical power, instantly reviving Gu Nianji's dulled sense of taste due to the fever. Song Jining silently sat across from Gu Nianji and began eating fried rice with a spoon. As she ate, her brows furrowed. She looked up at Wu Xiaoheng with confusion, then at Gu Nianji. "What's wrong? Is it not delicious? If it doesn't taste good, I'll help you eat it." Gu Nianji had already reached out to help Song Jining clean up. Wu Xiaoheng took her hand and put it back. His gaze was a little stern. "You can't eat anymore." Gu Nianji pursed her lips and quietly got up to pour tea. Song Jining finally asked Wu Xiaoheng softly, "May I ask how you managed to make it taste like this?" "I learned it from someone." He looked at Song Jining with a complicated expression and turned to Gu Nianji. "Do you want to go for a walk?" "Yes, of course." Gu Nianji quickly placed the tea tray in front of Song Jining. "Mrs. Hua, after you finish the fried rice, have some tea." She looked at Wu Xiaoheng with stars in her eyes. "You really want to take me out for a walk? Today is Boxing Day. Many famous stores in the imperial capital will have good things on sale." Wu Xiaoheng stepped aside. "Didn't you want to buy something?" Oh. Yes. Gu Nianji winked at Song Jining. "Take your time. I'm going out to buy something." Song Jining nodded in confusion. She still looked at Wu Xiaoheng. "This taste is so familiar. I can make it too." "Really?" Wu Xiaoheng smiled. He took Gu Nianji's hand and left. Gu Nianji followed Wu Xiaoheng down from the 3rd floor. She asked him quietly, "Why did your mother say this taste is so familiar?" "Because this is the fried rice she used to make for me when I was young. I loved it when I was young." Wu Xiaoheng replied dryly. Gu Nianji was about to look sympathetic when Wu Xiaoheng suddenly raised his hands to cup her face and pinch it. "Don't overthink it. I'm not that sentimental." Wu Xiaoheng's hands were strong. Gu Nianji's pale face blushed. He couldn't help but laugh. He patted her face gently and turned to go downstairs. As soon as he turned a corner, he bumped into Hu Jialan, who was rushing up the stairs. "Why are you guys down here?" Hu Jialan looked up to greet them. "Did you see Mrs. Song?" Wu Xiaoheng nodded. "Thank you." Gu Nianji covered her red face. She secretly rolled her eyes at Wu Xiaoheng. She peeked out from behind him. "Auntie Lan, why are you calling Mrs. Hua Mrs. Song?" Although Song Jining's surname was Song, she was married into the Hua family. She should be called Mrs. Hua. Although women in the Huaxia Empire didn't change their husband's surname after marriage, they usually used their husband's surname after marriage to distinguish themselves from single women. Gu Nianji had noticed yesterday that she was the only one who called Song Jining Mrs. Hua. Everyone else, including the Hua family servants, called Song Jining Mrs. Song. Hu Jialan's bright almond-shaped eyes blinked with interest. She looked at Wu Xiaoheng with a smile. "Cousin brother, you haven't told Miss Gu yet?" Wu Xiaoheng put his hands in his trouser pockets. He turned to look at Gu Nianji. "I'm going out for a smoke." He looked like he didn't want to talk about it anymore. He quickly walked down the stairs. Gu Nianji's large, misty eyes looked at Wu Xiaoheng's back. She then looked at the smiling Hu Jialan. She asked suspiciously, "What happened that I don't know about?" "I'll let cousin brother tell you." Hu Jialan patted her shoulder. She looked up and smiled at Wu Xiaoheng's back. She walked elegantly upstairs. Gu Nianji turned to look at Hu Jialan's curvaceous back. She sighed enviously. She thought to herself that she had to work harder to get a waist like that, legs like that, and a butt like that. Hu Jialan always dressed neatly at home. Today she wore a pink and purple qipao with snow-white fox fur trim. It accentuated her curvaceous figure. Gu Nianji could feel her waist twisting so much that it was almost a figure eight when she went upstairs. Of course, Hu Jialan didn't do it on purpose. It was just that with her curvaceous figure and narrow qipao, it was inevitable that she would sway gracefully when she went upstairs. Gu Nianji watched without blinking. She really wanted to learn how to be subtle. She was still young after all, Gu Nianji sighed faintly. As she went downstairs, she kept turning to peek at Hu Jialan's graceful movements. She only looked back when she was completely out of sight. She looked up to see Hu Xiaoheng with one hand in his trouser pocket and the other holding a cigarette. He was leaning against the banister at the bottom of the stairs waiting for her. "What are you looking at? Why are you so fascinated? Aren't you afraid of tripping on your way down?" Hu Xiaoheng extended his free hand to her. Gu Nianji took his hand and stared at the cigarette between his fingers. "Uncle Hua, are you going to smoke in the house? Go change first. Let me finish this cigarette." Hu Xiaoheng let go of her hand and walked to the door. Gu Nianji returned to the house to change. She wore a Burberry horn-button coat and a mulberry backpack. As soon as she stepped out of the door, she saw Hu Xiaoheng come out from the guest bedroom. He wore a navy blue shirt over a dark brown leather jacket. It wasn't a jacket, but a casual suit jacket. It was slightly tucked in at the back and looked a bit like a hunting jacket, but without the fussiness of a hunting jacket. It was lighter than a coat and thicker than a wool suit jacket. Hu Xiaoheng looked even more handsome in it. He looked like he had just stepped out of a top fashion magazine. But none of the male models had Hu Xiaoheng's good looks. Gu Nianji was mesmerized. "Let's go. What are you spacing out for?" Hu Xiaoheng walked past her and took out his car keys from his leather jacket pocket. Gu Nianji ran out behind Hu Xiaoheng. The two of them were dressed casually. Hu Xiaoheng had only arranged for a few plainclothes guards to secretly follow and protect them. It wasn't as grand as the last time he picked Gu Nianji up. "Where?" Gu Nianji followed Hu Xiaoheng's car. She asked carefully, "Uncle Hua, do you know how to drive?" Fan Jian had always been the driver. Fan Jian had been on vacation for the past few days, so Hu Xiaoheng hadn't hired another driver for him. Hu Xiaoheng didn't look at her. He started the car and said dryly, "No, what should I do? What should I do if I don't know how to drive?" Gu Nianji glared at him for a while. She looked at his handsome profile and suddenly giggled. She whispered, "Fine, fine, fine. You can say whatever you want if you're handsome." "What are you talking about?" Hu Xiaoheng finally glared at her. "Sit tight and fasten your seatbelt." Gu Nianji fastened her seatbelt and complimented the Bentley from front to back, inside and out. Her words were exaggerated and talkative, so Hu Xiaoheng listened to her voice as he was lost in his thoughts. He didn't need to respond to Gu Nianji's words anyway, so the time he spent with her was always relaxing and passed quickly. It didn't take long before they arrived at Xi'an Plaza, the center of the famous stores in the imperial capital. They parked the car in the underground parking lot. Gu Nianji exited the car excitedly and stretched out her hand to spin in a circle. She said happily, "This parking lot is even bigger than the malls in the United States." Hu Xiaoheng locked the car and said expressionlessly, "Let's go to the 8th floor." The famous stores were all located on the 8th floor of the Xi'an Plaza. Gu Nianji jogged to catch up to him. She watched as the number of people in the parking lot increased. She pursed her lips and walked to Hu Xiaoheng's side. She said meekly, Hu Xiao, I need to discuss something with you." "Go ahead." I won't call you uncle when we're outside today, okay?" Gu Nianji asked, blushing. She wanted to shop with Hu Xiaoheng like they were of the same generation and have a beautiful memory. But it wouldn't be a beautiful memory if she kept calling him Uncle Hua. Hu Xiaoheng was speechless. He tilted his head to look at her and said dryly, "The way you're bouncing around, people will think you're my junior even if you don't call me uncle." Gu Nianji quickly stopped in her tracks. "I'm not bouncing around. I wanted to talk to you. Who told you to walk so fast?" So he thought she was too young and didn't have the demeanor of a mature woman? Gu Nianji's heart ached, but she forced it down and didn't show it. Hu Xiaoheng slowed down to match her pace. As if taking a leisurely stroll, he led her into the elevator and went straight to the 8th floor. The Chanel flagship store in the Wuxia Empire was directly opposite the elevator on the 8th floor. "Go in and pick out some clothes." Hu Xiaoheng took out a cigarette. "I'll wait for you here." He stood in the hallway outside the Chanel store and lit his cigarette. He waved at Gu Nianji. Gu Nianji felt dizzy when she saw all the colors. Without another word, she went in to greet the newest Chanel collection. Hu Xiaoheng watched her bouncing back and smiled. He leaned against the railing on the 8th floor and smoked in silence. Half an hour later, Gu Nianji came out of the Chanel store with a smile on her face. She was about to show off her achievements to Hua Xiaoheng when she heard someone rush over in surprise. Hua Xiao. Isn't that Hua Xiao? You're finally back. We haven't seen each other in years. This was the 3,500-word second update. It was the first update to reward Ren Xiaoyao 2722, the leader of the alliance, Chiua. It was the last 2 days of the month. My friends, please vote for the Major General with your monthly and recommendation votes. My friends, the more monthly votes you have, the more it will motivate me to update, ha 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 ha. Oh, intersection. Oh. Chapter 202. Hua Xiaoheng looked up to see that it was his childhood friend, Xue Jingjiang. He hadn't seen him since joining the army, and was surprised to see him here. Xue Jingjiang had large eyes and bushy eyebrows. He was tall and only a little shorter than Hua Xiaoheng. Beside him stood a tall woman with an internet celebrity face. He pounced on Hua Xiaoheng and patted his shoulder vigorously. He sighed and lamented, "Sigh, it's been so many years, why haven't you gone home? You're a soldier, not an exile." Hua Xiaoheng smiled and looked Xue Jingjiang up and down. "I haven't seen you in so many years, Boots. You're still as good as ever." Because Xue Jingjiang's surname was Xue, his childhood friends all called him Boots. "I haven't heard anyone call me Boots in so many years." Xue Jingjiang was almost moved to tears. "Hua Xiao, how long will you be back this time? I heard you've become a major general at such a young age. That's amazing." "You flatter me." Hua Xiaoheng shook hands with him. "What a coincidence that I ran into you as soon as I got back." Xue Jingjiang quickly said, "A chance encounter is better than an invitation. I'll treat you guys to a gathering at my Jolo Fengyu. You must come, Hua Xiao." Hua Xiaoheng instinctively glanced at Gu Nianji, who was standing silently beside him. Gu Nianji immediately put on a pleading expression, hoping he wouldn't forget her earlier request. Xue Jingjiang finally noticed Gu Nianji, who was standing beside Hua Xiaoheng. At first glance, the little girl was like the first handful of snow in early winter, afraid to melt in one's hand, but afraid to be blown away by the wind. She had a face as exquisite as a painting, and a pair of inky black eyes that were so lively they seemed almost incorporeal. He froze, then chuckled and asked Hua Xiaoheng, "Who's this Hua Xiao? Aren't you going to introduce her?" Hua Xiaoheng tilted his head to look at Gu Nianji and said casually, "Oh, she's the child of our family. Her surname is Gu, so you can call her Little Gu." As he spoke, he reached out with one hand to take the Chanel bags from her and held Gu Nianji's hand with the other. Gu Nianji was on the verge of breaking down when she saw Xue Jingjiang's, not calling him uncle, but calling him uncle, attitude. She was crying internally but had to force a smile on her face. She waved at Xue Jingjiang. "Hello, Brother Boots." Xue Jingjiang was delighted to hear her soft voice. "Hello, Little Gu. Go to Big Brother Xue's place later. Tell your Big Brother Xue what you want to play or eat. I'll definitely satisfy you." Xue Jingjiang turned to Hua Xiaoheng. "Jilo Fengjiu is on the 9th floor here. You just need to go up 1 floor. I'll call Chui Baiwen, Hong Ziki, and Bai Tianchuan to invite them over for dinner." Hua Xiaoheng wasn't in a hurry to go home. He nodded and said, "We're all family, so we should get together." As soon as Hua Xiaoheng said this, Xue Jingjiang immediately understood. He quickly said to the popular girl beside him, "I have something to do here. You can go now. I'll have tea with you some other time." The girl had been looking at Hua Xiaoheng with sparkling eyes, but when Xue Jingjiang told her to leave, her face immediately darkened. She shouted angrily, "Xue! Don't burn the bridge after crossing it." Xue Jingjiang couldn't argue with her in front of Hua Xiaoheng, so he immediately glared at her. She didn't dare make a scene again. She pouted and threw her Louis Vuitton bag on her back before storming off. Xue Jingjiang finally dialed the numbers of his childhood friends and notified them one by one. "Hello. Brothers, come quickly. Hua Xiao's back. We'll meet at my Jilo Fengjiu. Hurry over. Remember to bring family. It has to be a proper family." He turned his back to Hua Xiaoheng and Gu Nianji when he said the last sentence. Gu Nianji immediately understood what Xue Jingjiang was implying. She couldn't help but smile. Hua Xiaoheng remained calm and collected, as if he hadn't heard Xue Jingjiang's words. He stood ramrod straight in front of the elevator door, his gaze lightly landing on Gu Nianji's curled red lips. He paused for a moment. The commotion had alerted many passers-by. Mei Xiaowen and Jiang Hongcha had just walked out of the Louis Vuitton store nearby, carrying a paper bag. They heard the commotion and looked up. Mei Xiaowen saw Gu Nianji immediately. She was standing next to an imposing man, like a helpless little bird. There was no trace of makeup on her snow-white face, but her features were extraordinarily beautiful. Jiang Hongcha saw Hua Xiaoheng first. His tall and straight figure and his breathtakingly handsome face made it hard for others not to notice him. Jiang Hongcha stared at Hua Xiaoheng for a moment before she saw Gu Nianji standing next to him from the corner of her eye. Her eyes were immediately drawn to Gu Nianji. Jiang Hongcha asked Mei Xiaowen, "Didn't you say that Gu Nianji was an orphan from an ordinary family?" "Yes, she's an orphan," Mei Xiaowen said absent-mindedly, his eyes fixed on Gu Nianji. "But the Burberry coat she's wearing, the Hermes scarf around her neck, the mulberry backpack on her back, and the Salvatore Ferragamo knee-high boots on her feet, she's wearing everything at least $100,000, Jiang Hongcha said faintly. She pursed her lips and said, "Are you sure she's an orphan with no family background?" Mei Xiaowen frowned. Nianji has never dressed like this in school. If she had dressed like this before, there was no way he would be mistaken. He suddenly remembered Gu Nianji's apartment in Sea City's Fengya precinct, and felt that something was amiss. Jiang Hongcha believed Mei Xiaowen and looked at Gu Nianji disdainfully. "If you're not mistaken, then she must have a sugar daddy. Look, I've seen that woman who was arguing just now. She's an internet celebrity model who specializes in selling herself. She can go for more than 10,000 just to have a meal with someone." Mei Xiaowen was shocked. "You're saying that Nianji earns money like this?" "She has good taste though. The man holding her hand next to her is really imposing. This sugar daddy isn't just rich, he's also good-looking. He must be a high-quality sugar daddy. Did she hook up with him in America?" Jiang Hongcha gently pushed Mei Xiaowen's shoulder. "Tell me, does Professor He know what his favorite student is up to?" Jiang Hongcha took out her phone and was about to take a photo of the two when a man walked over and said sternly, "You can't take photos here. Please delete the photos you've already taken." Jiang Hongcha was shocked. When the man walked away, she looked again and saw that the people at the elevator had already entered it. Let's go, let's go." Mei Xiaowen glanced at the elevator, then pulled Jiang Hongcha away. Gu Nianji followed Hua Xiaoheng and Xue Jingjiang to the 9th floor of Xi'an Plaza. After a few steps, they arrived in front of an antique clubhouse. There was a black plaque on the door that was gilded with gold. On it were 4 large words written in flamboyant calligraphy, Jiu Lu Feng Yu. So that's what it was called. Gu Nianji looked at it curiously, then followed Hua Xiaoheng inside. Xue Jingjiang led the way. He was the owner, so of course the lights were green the entire way. They soon arrived at the most exclusive private room in the Jiu Lu Feng Yu clubhouse. There was an entire wall of glass windows overlooking the bustling streets. The private room was beautifully arranged with a Luohan bed, a square table, a round rosewood table inlaid with mother-of-pearl inlaid, and a mahogany high-back armchair. There was also a separate karaoke room separated by a screen. Sit, I'll ask them to serve some local snacks first." Xue Jingjiang was personally taking care of everything. Hua Xiaoheng pulled out a high-back armchair for Gu Nianji and asked her to sit down. He sat on the chair next to her and crossed his legs. After pouring her a cup of tea, he draped an arm over the back of the chair behind Gu Nianji. Gu Nianji instantly sat up straight, not daring to lean back. It felt like she was sitting in his arms. His warm breath was so close and his arm was right behind her. She really wanted to lean against him. This was the first 2,500-word update. Today's second update was also 2 updates in one, including the second update to reward Ren Xiaoyao 2722 Chiyue, the great leader of the alliance. It was at 7:00 p.m. It's the last day of the month. Everyone, please vote for the Major General. If you don't have any votes for this month, remember to vote for the Major General tomorrow for next month's guaranteed monthly votes. Chapter 203. Gu Nianji's heart raced and she was so nervous she was trembling, but she didn't dare lean back. What would Hua Xiao think of her if she did? "Why aren't you eating? Your face is so red, are you having a fever again?" Hua Xiaoheng observed Gu Nianji's expression as he spoke to Xue Jingjiang. Seeing her flushed cheeks, he quickly touched her forehead with his hand. It was indeed a little hot. Xue Jingjiang, who was sitting on the other side of Hua Xiaoheng, felt his heart skip a beat. He hoped Gu Nianji didn't get sick at this time. It wasn't easy for them to get together with Hua Xiao. If she got sick, Hua Xiao would definitely leave. Is it because the air conditioner here is too hot? I'll get someone to lower it. Xue Jingjiang stood up and asked Gu Nianji, "Do you want some warm milk?" Milk was the standard for such a soft and adorable girl. Gu Nianji was mortified. She tilted her head slightly away from Hua Xiaoheng's hand and suppressed her racing heart. She smiled at Shui Jingjiang, who was looking at her eagerly. "Brother Shui, I'm fine, but I can have some warm milk." Shui Jingjiang sighed in relief and gave her a thumbs up. "I like this little sister. If you need anything in the imperial capital in the future, just come to me." "Why would I want to come to you, you idiot? Every girl who comes to you ends up in bed with you." The door to the private room was pushed open, and the laughter of 3 men could be heard. 3 beautiful women followed behind them. Shui Jingjiang turned around to see his 3 childhood friends. He rushed over to greet them. "There's a little girl here, so don't be dirty. Be careful or Huo Xiao will shoot you." Huo Xiaoheng smiled and stood up from his seat. His military posture was ramrod straight as he looked at the 3 men. "Hoodlum, Tianquan, Ziki, hello. Long time no see. Oh, it's Huo Xiao." Cui Baifei by Tianquan and Hong Ziki all rushed over to shake his hand. They laughed. "Wow, this time I shook hands with the youngest major general in the Huaxia Empire. I'm not going to wash my hands for a month." "Forget it. You only know how to joke around." Shui Jingjiang laughed heartily as he walked over. As he asked the waiter to serve the dishes, he began to introduce them. "Huo Xiao, you haven't been back for so many years. You don't know about us, do you?" "Yes, tell me about it." Huo Xiaoheng turned to look at Gun Yanji. Seeing that she had also stood up, he pulled her to stand beside him. Shui Jingjiang pointed at a woman in a purple wool coat standing next to Cui Baifei. "This is Baifei's wife. We call her Mrs. Cui." He pointed at the woman wearing a red down jacket standing behind by Tianquan and said, "This is Tianquan's fiancée, Shui Xinran. She's also my cousin. We just got engaged this year and will officially get married next year." Finally, he pointed at the woman in the white cashmere coat standing beside Hong Ziki and said, "She's Ziki's girlfriend, Guo Huining, a top student who graduated from B University's Faculty of Law. She's the director of Hong Corporation's legal department. She and Ziki are a match made in heaven, ha." Huo Xiaoheng nodded at them. "Nice to meet you. Who is this little sister? She looks so delicate and pretty." Hong Ziki's girlfriend, Guo Huining, was a talkative person. She was also a law student. Although her family background was average, she was smart, studious, and hardworking. Finally, she got the approval of the head of the Hong family and officially became the girlfriend of Hong Ziki, a famous second-generation in the city. Shui Jingjiang looked at Gun Yanji with a smile. She thought that this girl had a good appearance and was dressed like a luxury brand, but it didn't stand out. She wasn't like some people who wore luxury brands because they wore clothes, not the other way around. Huo Xiaoheng took Gun Yanji's hand and smiled faintly as he introduced her to them. "This is the child of the family. Her last name is Gu, you can call her Little Gu." He introduced her the same way he had introduced Shui Jingjiang. However, everyone in the private room was smart. Hearing Huo Xiaoheng's vague introduction, they could confirm at least 2 things. First, this girl had a close relationship with the Huo family. Even though her last name wasn't Huo, Huo Xiaoheng had referred to her as the child of the family. Second, Huo Xiaoheng valued this girl very much and was very protective of her. He didn't even say her full name and only said her last name was Gu. How protective was he of her? Although they all knew these 2 things, no one was stupid enough to argue with Huo Xiaoheng. Since he had casually introduced Gun Yanji's identity, they pretended not to know and sat down at the round rosewood tables decorated with mother-of-pearl shells. Everyone was supposed to be seated separately, but because Shui Jingjiang hadn't brought any female family members with him and Gun Yanji was an unknown girl, everyone intentionally switched seats. Huo Xiaoheng sat at the head of the table with Gun Yanji on his right and Shui Jingjiang on his left. The seat next to Gun Yanji had been taken by Guo Huining. 2 women sitting next to each other was definitely better than a stranger sitting next to Gun Yanji. Huo Xiaoheng watched as everyone sat down and didn't say anything else. He nodded in satisfaction and watched as the waiters served the dishes. Today is a welcome dinner for Huo Xiaoheng. Jilofenjiu prepared Buddha jumps over the wall soup for Christmas and New Year. Most people have to pre-order it 6 months in advance, but since Huo Xiaoheng is back, I made an exception and enjoyed it myself. Shui Jingjiang smiled as he pointed to the ancient, steaming round pot in the middle of the table. The kitchen stewed it for an entire day and night. Everyone try it. Buddha jumps over the wall soup requires more than 10 ingredients. Sea cucumber, abalone, shark's fin, scallops, fish lips, turtle skirts, deer tendons, pigeon eggs, duck gizzards, fish maw, scallops, pigeon, spare ribs, razor clams, ham, pork belly, lamb knuckles, hoof tips, tendons, winter mushrooms, winter bamboo shoots, and so on. Then, the different ingredients are separately cooked using different methods such as frying, stir-frying, boiling, and deep-frying. Finally, the cooked ingredients are layered into a large jar of Shaoxing wine. Then, soup and cooking wine are added. The jar is sealed with lotus leaves and placed over the fire to stew. Our restaurant uses white smoke and charcoal to simmer it for an entire day and night to create this delicious and nutritious Buddha jumps-over-the-wall soup. Shui Jingjiang shook his head as he introduced the restaurant's signature dish to everyone. The waiters waited for Shui Jingjiang to finish before coming over to remove the lotus leaf lids. The rich aroma of food instantly filled the private room. Come, everyone try it. Shui Jingjiang picked up a spoon and called for everyone to dig in. Although Gu Nianji had eaten her fill in the morning, she couldn't help but have a huge appetite. She looked at Huo Xiaoheng. Huo Xiaoheng didn't say anything and handed the small soup bowl in front of her to Shui Jingjiang. Shui Jingjiang quickly said, "The first bowl isn't very good, so I'll scoop some for myself first. The good stuff is at the bottom and the so-called essence has already settled." Hong Ziki laughed when he heard this. "You idiot Shui Jingjiang. Now that you're trying to please little Gu, you have to tell the truth. When I came here to eat Buddha jumps-over-the-wall soup in the past, you always said that the first bowl was the most expensive. You coaxed me to eat the first bowl every time. So you've been lying to me all along." Shui Jingjiang laughed heartily. "Look at you. Who else would I lie to if not you? Let me tell you, you're only fit to eat the top layer." Bai Tianquan couldn't help laughing as well. He shot Cui Baifei a look, and the two of them brought a bottle of 30-year-old Maotai over to toast Huo Xiaoheng. "Huo Xiao, we haven't seen you in so many years. We've missed you so much. We saved this Maotai just for you." When they'd first saved it, it had been 20-year-old. In the blink of an eye, it had become 30-year-old. Huo Xiaoheng smiled and raised his glass. "Then I'll drink first." He downed it in one gulp, and the mellow aroma of the Maotai mixed with the steam wafted around him. Gu Nianji was intoxicated just from the smell. She pursed her lips and secretly glanced at the bottle of Maotai. She had never tasted real alcohol in her life. Bai Tianquan and Cui Baifei saw that Huo Xiaoheng had drunk first and quickly followed suit. After a round of toasts, Shui Jingjiang also divided a jar of Buddha jumps-over-the-wall soup into small bowls in front of everyone. Gu Nianji's bowl contained the essence of the entire jar. Huo Xiaoheng placed a soup spoon in front of her. "Eat, you've just recovered from a serious illness. You should nourish yourself." "Little Gu is sick? What illness?" Guo Huaining overheard and quickly asked. "No wonder you look so pale. Are you weak?" She knew that these rich young ladies always ate supplements as if they were meals. Gu Nianji shook her head with a smile. "I caught a cold and had a fever. I recovered yesterday, but my appetite still isn't that good. But Brother Shui's Buddha jumps-over-the-wall soup is on me today. My appetite depends on it." Gu Nianji's voice was soft and didn't have the inherent arrogance of a rich young lady. When she spoke, she was considerate and easily deflected Guo Huaining's sarcastic remarks. Cui Baifei, Bai Tianquan, and Hong Ziki had a whole new level of respect for her with just this one sentence. Shui Jingjiang had long been stunned by Gu Nianji's beauty, and now he was impressed by her appropriate response. He quickly said, "I see. Then I'll order another Buddha jumps-over-the-wall soup. I must nourish little Gu's body today." Gu Nianji quickly waved her hands. No need. This bowl is enough for me. Your brother Shui is looking out for you. Don't be disobedient." Huo Xiaoheng still had one arm draped over the back of her chair. Gu Nianji couldn't refuse any more. She could only say to Shui Jingjiang, "Then everyone is in luck. Thank you, Brother Shui." Soon, another bowl of Buddha jumps-over-the-wall soup was delivered. Gu Nianji continued to eat the bowl at the bottom. After finishing 2 small bowls of Buddha jumps-over-the-wall soup, Gu Nianji couldn't eat anything else. Cui Baifei's wife, Mrs. Cui, saw this and left the table with a smile. "I'm full. I want to sit over there." She then asked Gu Nianji, "Little Gu, do you want to rest over there with me?" Gu Nianji couldn't have asked for more. She quickly said, "I'm full too. I'll broaden my horizons with Mrs. Cui." Bai Tianquan's fiancé Shui Xinran and Hong Ziki's girlfriend, Guo Huaining, also left the table. The 4 women went to the karaoke area behind the screen to chat. Huo Xiaoheng listened to a few of them post stories about the past few years. Gu Nianji slumped on the sofa behind the screen and laughed. "I'm really full. Brother Shui's Buddha jumps-over-the-wall soup is so delicious. I can't stop eating it." "You're lucky. It's all thanks to you." Mrs. Cui giggled and said, "In the past, we had to draw lots to make reservations. That idiot Shui sure knows how to do business. He's a master at hunger marketing." There are more than 10 restaurants in the capital that serve Buddha jumps over the wall, but his is the most popular. When they started talking about business, Gunyanji didn't want to interrupt. She listened to them with a smile on her face and didn't interrupt. She was very quiet. Mrs. Chui didn't want to leave Gunyanji out. Chui Baifei had brought her here to keep Gunyanji company. She thought about it and asked quietly, "Little Gu, how old are you this year?" "I just turned 18 in October." Gunyanji picked up the teapot and poured tea for them. "What about you guys?" Since she was asking about age, everyone was equal and had to answer. Gua Huaning was the oldest. She was 28 years old, the same age as Hong Ziki. Mrs. Chui was 25, and Xue Xinran was 23, but they were both older than Gunyanji. "You're still so young? Where did you go to university?" Gua Huaning was very emotional. "I'm 10 years older than you. You already graduated with a master's in law. You're a genius. Don't be emotional in front of us." Xue Xinran nudged her and asked Gunyanji, "What's your major?" They all thought Gunyanji was only a freshman. Gunyanji smiled. "I graduated this year. I'll be going to be university's faculty of law in the spring. Sister Gua, please take care of me in the future." "Oh? You graduated at 18? Mrs. Chui and Xue Xinran were pleasantly surprised. This was a beautiful girl with good looks, IQ and a family background. They quickly sat on either side of Gunyanji and pulled her aside to ask her all sorts of questions. They were very interested. Xue Xinran even asked her immediately, "Are you a relative of the Huo family? Do you have a boyfriend?" "My younger brother is 22 this year and just graduated from B University's Faculty of Economics. I'll introduce you guys someday." This was the second update of the day, and it was a total of 13,500 words. It included the second update to reward Rin Xiaoyao 2722, the leader of the alliance, Jiue. It was the last day of the month. "Everyone, please vote for the Major General. If you don't have any more votes for this month, remember to vote for the Major General tomorrow for next month's guaranteed monthly votes." The original plan was to update at 7 p.m., but the editor informed the editor that they had to maintain the server. They were afraid that something would go wrong at night and it would be difficult to find the Major General, so they updated in the afternoon. There were no more updates at night. Chapter 204. Xue Xinran's voice was clear and melodious, and stood out in the midst of all the chatter. Gunyanji felt that the entire room had gone silent after Xue Xinran's words. But perhaps it was just her imagination, because she quickly heard the clinking of glasses and the sound of Gua Huaning fiddling with the karaoke machine. Mrs. Chui sat on the other side of her and nudged her with a smile. "Yes, little Gu, do you have a boyfriend? If not, I have a lot of handsome young men here." She winked at her. It seemed like one of the hobbies of good women was to be matchmakers. Gunyanji didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She was a little flustered and stammered, "Huh? Boyfriend?" Oh. She recalled Hua Xiaoheng's calm and rational voice when Mei Xiaowen had tried to pursue her at school. He had told her that he had no opinion on what kind of boyfriend she had. At the time, she didn't understand why her mood had immediately dropped when she heard his words. Now she understood, but she couldn't tell anyone about it. She now knew that she would never fall in love with another man, regardless of whether he had an opinion or not. "Tell me? Why not? What's there to be shy about?" Xue Xinran tugged at her arm and shook it. She laughed and said, "Didn't you already graduate from university? It wouldn't be strange if you had a boyfriend. Don't feel pressured, we won't force you." Gunyanji finally took a deep breath and straightened her back. She slowly exhaled and blushed as she whispered, "I don't have a boyfriend." "That's great." Xue Xinran snapped her right hand. "Where's your phone? I'll give you my brother's number, he's..." Before Xue Xinran could finish, Gunyanji interrupted her with a smile. "But I already have someone I like." Although her voice was soft, it still penetrated the gap in the screen and reached Hua Xiaoheng's ears. His hand paused for a moment before clinking glasses with Bai Tianquan and Hong Ziki and downing the contents in one gulp. "Good. Hua Xiao's tolerance is as good as ever. It's even better than before." Xue Jingjiang laughed heartily and filled his glass again. "You already have someone you like?" Mrs. Chui was curious. "But you also said you don't have a boyfriend. Are you secretly in love with him?" "Crush? Are there still people who have a crush on someone these days?" Gua Huaning sat on the karaoke stage and turned around with a smile. "If you like someone, go and confess. How could anyone refuse a girl like you?" Gunyanji smiled but didn't say anything. She regretted talking so deeply to these people she had just met. Whether she had a boyfriend or someone she liked, what did that have to do with them? She just couldn't restrain her desire to pour her heart out, so she took the opportunity to tell that person. But just as she expected, that person did not respond at all. Who she liked and who she didn't like was not within his consideration. Gu Nianji got up with a smile and asked Mrs. Cui, "May I know where the bathroom is? I'll be right back." Mrs. Cui and Xue Xinran exchanged glances. They knew that they had said too much and the little girl was unhappy. "Come, I'll take you there. Just take a turn at the end of the corridor." Mrs. Cui stood up and held out her hand. Gu Nianji quickly said, "Little Cui, it's okay. You guys sing, I'll go find it myself." The place wasn't big, so how could he not find it? "I'm not a child." She turned and walked away. Mrs. Cui saw that Gu Nianji didn't want anyone to follow her. She remembered that it was broad daylight, and they were on Xue Jingjiang's turf. There was no way he would let anything happen to Hua Xiaoheng's relative, so she didn't follow Gu Nianji out. Instead, she followed Xue Xinran and Guo Huaning to find a place to sing. Hua Xiaoheng stood up and said to the four of them, "You guys keep drinking, I'm going out for a smoke." He walked out as well. Xue Jingjiang and the others were all drunk, and none of them were a match for Hua Xiaoheng. When they saw him walk out, they could only wave at him. Everything they saw was double vision, but they couldn't put down their glasses when they got too drunk. Gu Nianji walked out alone and found the ladies' bathroom. She went in first but didn't use the toilet. She tidied her hair and clothes in front of the mirror before coming out to the balcony to take a breath of fresh air. It was too hot in the private room, and she was wearing a high-collared cashmere sweater. She felt like she was about to break out in sweat. She walked to the balcony and saw that it was actually a glass balcony. In the winter, the glass ceiling would be lowered to create a thermostatic glass greenhouse. There were tall evergreen plants inside, and the sound of running water could be heard. The winter sun shone through the glass greenhouse's ceiling. It wasn't warm, but it wasn't cold either. Gu Nianji looked around and sat down on a stone bench under a banana tree. She took out her phone and unlocked it, wanting to call someone. She had been aroused by those people today and her heart was pounding. She really wanted to ask someone if it was okay for her to have such thoughts. Gu Nianji opened the contact list on her phone. Her fingers slid over the long list of names, and she clicked on Little Temptress's profile picture. It was just noon, and Little Temptress was either having lunch or sleeping. She picked up the phone as soon as it rang. Little Temptress was about to take an afternoon nap. "Nianji, is that you? Where are you now?" Little Temptress asked anxiously. "Are you okay?" They hadn't been in contact since Christmas night, when they received her Christmas greetings. Little Temptress, Lady Chow and Green Tea Fong were all worried about her. Gu Nianji smiled. "I'm fine, I'm eating out with friends." "Oh, that's good." Little Temptress sighed in relief. "Don't run away without a word again. You really scared the three of us that day." "I won't." Gu Nianji felt that her ability to withstand shocks had increased. She switched the phone to her other hand and asked quietly, "Little Temptress, is it convenient for you to talk now?" Little Temptress nodded. "I'm alone in my bedroom, just about to take an afternoon nap. Of course, I won't sleep if you want to talk on the phone. I've been sleeping at home all day during the holidays, I've gotten fat." Gu Nianji imagined Little Temptress's arrogant expression and couldn't help laughing. "Little Temptress, I want to talk to you, I'm very upset. Is it because of Mei Xiaowen?" Little Temptress perked up and sat up, leaning against the pillow. "Tell me, how do you want me to avenge you?" Gu Nianji quickly shook her head. No, what does it have to do with him?" "Little Temptress, to tell you the truth, I've never liked him from beginning to end." Because she already knew what it was like to like someone. "If you've never liked him, then what are you upset about?" Little Temptress didn't understand. She took the iPad and swiped it open, planning to watch the drama while talking to Gu Nianji. Gu Nianji stammered a few times before whispering, "Because I like someone." "Oh. Really? Who is it? Who is it? Tell me." Little Temptress was very interested and flipped the iPad on the bed. "Let me see if he's good enough for you." Gu Nianji said, "You don't know him." "Won't I know him if you tell me?" Little Temptress snorted. "Hurry up and tell me. I'm warning you, you can't whet someone's appetite without saying anything, that's just being a hooligan." Gu Nianji was silent for a moment, then said, "I like someone, but he won't like me." Their status was an insurmountable chasm between them. Little Temptress was silent for a moment, then looked at the phone and put it to her ear. "Is this classmate Gu Nianji?" "No way. Who would reject a girl like you? He must be blind." "Keep your voice down." Gu Nianji felt like Little Temptress's voice could be heard without a loudspeaker, so she quickly covered the phone. "Don't be so loud." Fine, fine, I'll keep my voice down. Little temptress paused. How do you know he won't like you? Have you confessed to him? Of course not. Gu Nianji's face was as red as blood. How would she dare? I see, I didn't think our Nianji would have a crush. Little temptress teased her with a smile, finally saying, but I think you should let him know you like him. No. Gu Nianji instinctively objected. I'm afraid if I tell him, we won't even be friends anymore. If she was rejected, she wouldn't have the face to stay by his side anymore. How about this, you flirt with him? Little temptress waved her arm. Big sis will teach you a few tricks to flirt, it'll be a piece of cake for you. This was the first 2,500-word update. Today's second update was also 2 updates in one, including an additional update to reward Ren Xiaoyao 2722, Chiyue's immortal love fate. It was at 7 p.m. Thank you to Guanghan Palace Lord A for the spirit pet fate yesterday, and thank you to Fish G for the immortal love fate yesterday. Mwah. On the first day of September, give your monthly and recommendation votes to the Major General. Chapter 205. Seduce? I can't. I don't know how to. I don't want to be too proactive. Gu Nianji said sheepishly. Her hand unconsciously grabbed the large leaf of the banana tree beside her. She was no stranger to the word seduce. She had seen many things in her 2 years in the dorm. The reason why Little Temptress was called Little Temptress was because she was a famous seducer in the C University Faculty of Law. The men she wanted to seduce had never escaped her grasp. Nianji, you're wrong about that. Seducing isn't proactive, and it's not throwing yourself at him. When Little Temptress mentioned her specialty, she immediately became excited. The purpose of flirting is to attract the other party's attention. Make him fall in love with you and then chase after you. Therefore your posture must be nice and reserved. You can't be impatient. This way you can advance and retreat at will. You won't be unable to be friends with the other person because of rejection. Oh? You can do that. Gu Nianji felt like she had opened the door to a new world. Her heart tensed. She plucked a strand of the banana tree's large leaf. Of course. How do you think I managed to get the title of Little Temptress from both sides? Little Temptress laughed wildly. If her subordinates had seen it, they would have thought they were blind. How could such a seductive Little Temptress laugh so boldly? Then how did you seduce him? Gu Nianji's interest was piqued. She took out the enthusiasm of a studious child and swore to study this seduction skill. Little Temptress leaned on her bed and laughed hysterically. Well, half of it depends on comprehension and half on talent. The master leads the way but the individual cultivates it. But Nianji, you've always learned things quickly. I have high hopes for you. Tell me. Gu Nianji panicked. Don't talk nonsense. On the walkway outside the glass greenhouse, Hua Xiaoheng lit a cigarette and smoked quietly. Although Gu Nianji's phone call wasn't loud, it was quiet and no one was there. Hua Xiaoheng leaned against the smooth wall of the greenhouse and heard most of it. There was no expression on his face. The white smoke he exhaled from time to time obscured his features. Only a pair of dark, jade-like eyes flashed with an obscure light. Little Temptress continued on the phone. Flirting isn't easy, but it isn't hard either. The key is the degree of control and how much do you know about the person you like. That was hard to say. Gu Nianji frowned and thought about it, then asked, what do you mean? She knew what color Hua Xiaoheng liked, what he liked to eat, what he liked to do when he was angry and when he was happy. She didn't know much else. As expected, the enchantress touched his sore spot. You don't even know that? For example, what kind of woman does he like? Ha! Gu Nianji felt like she was about to be slaughtered. What kind of girl did Hua Xiaoheng like? This question was not easy to answer. She had only seen it once, at the closing reception of the International Outstanding Women's Commendation Conference. Hua Xiaoheng had smiled at a beautiful woman. Did that count? Gu Nianji mulled it over for a long time, then shook her head. Not really. Little Temptress. She thought about it and asked from another angle, what kind of female stars does he like? Fat or thin? Was it tall or short? Is she plump or slim? Gu Nianji. She was about to be slaughtered. The stern Major General Hua Xiaoheng was interested in female stars. That was too scary. She might as well think about how to earn 100 million to calm her nerves. Nianji. You don't even know what kind of person the man you like is, yet you like him. Little Temptress was about to spit blood from anger. You might as well change your crush to someone else. No. Gu Nianji objected reflexively. I just like him. I can't like anyone else more than I like him. Even if she didn't marry for the rest of her life, she would stay by his side. Fine. Little temptress closed her eyes. She hated this kind of unreasonable little girl who was blinded by one-sided love. But she wasn't someone else. She was Gunyenji, her dear roommate and friend. She couldn't watch her friend waste her youth in a hopeless relationship. Although youth would pass even if it wasn't wasted, it was better to do something in one's youth than nothing. Little temptress perked up and regrouped. Fine, let's not care what kind of woman that man likes. It doesn't matter if he likes you or not. You have to like him and he has to like you, right? Yes, yes, yes. Little temptress's words resonated with Gunyenji's heart. She nodded like a chick pecking at rice, a strand of hair swaying beside her ear as she nodded. So why should she care what kind of woman Huo Xiaoheng liked? She liked him, so she wanted the woman he liked to be like her. If not, then she had to seduce him until she was. Gunyenji clenched her fists. She could almost feel her little universe burning up. Now that the direction of action was determined, the specific plan of action was in order. Little temptress began to instruct her. Seducing him is actually very simple. It's all about adapting to the local conditions and seducing everywhere. For example, when you're talking to him, don't look at him directly. Instead, stand in front of him and look at him from a 45-degree angle. When he walks past you, look at him from the corner of your eye. When he notices you, quickly look away. You have to make the best of a mistake. It's winter now, so you can also let him warm your hands after you shower at night. Gunyenji thought about it carefully. She felt very hopelessly that if she continued seducing him like this, she would die from a blood rush to her brain before Huo Xiaoheng could react. Also, if she treated Huo Xiaoheng like this, he would definitely think she was crazy. He might even take her to Chenlai for a CT scan equals. Also, if she treated Huo Xiaoheng like this, he would definitely think she was crazy. He might even take her to Chenlai for a CT scan equals. Is there any other way? Gunyenji asked weakly. She almost raised her hand. I don't think these methods are suitable for him. Hey, how do you know it's not suitable if you haven't tried it? Little temptress was furious. How dare he question her professional seduction skills? This was intolerable. Let me tell you, when it comes to seducing a man, you have to be familiar with him. You can't be too unconventional. Because you want to leave a good impression on the man you like, not confuse him. Little temptress was exasperated at her failure to meet her expectations. This little girl was usually so smart in her studies. Why was she so clueless when it came to relationships? Perhaps it was because she was too young. Gunyenji listened to Little Temptress's outburst in silence. She even raised her phone away from her ear because she was too loud. However, Huo Xiaoheng, who was standing at the door, heard everything clearly. His face was still expressionless as he calmly puffed on his cigarette. Little Temptress, do you have any other methods? That person is very difficult. Gunyenji heard that Little Temptress had finally finished venting and asked quietly. She put the phone to her ear again to listen carefully. Huo Xiaoheng finally threw the cigarette butt into a nearby trash can and turned to walk inside. He quietly stood in front of Gunyenji. Yenji. Gunyenji was startled. Her hand slipped and the phone slipped from her hand to the ground. Huo Xiaoheng bent over and caught the phone. He turned it off and handed it to Gunyenji. What are you doing here? Gunyenji blushed. She could only pray that Huo Xiaoheng hadn't heard what she had said to Little Temptress. She mumbled, I was calling a classmate. Okay, go back. You've been out for a long time. Huo Xiaoheng didn't say anything else. He spread his long, clean fingers at her. Gunyenji carefully placed her small hand in Huo Xiaoheng's palm. He held her hand as they returned to the private room. The door to the private room opened. Huo Xiaoheng and Gunyenji walked in together. You guys came back together? Shui Jingjiang was drunk and stumbled over to Huo Xiaoheng. Huo Xiao, Tianquan was crying just now. Hurry up and talk to him. What's there to cry about? Huo Xiaoheng sat down. He didn't let go, so Gunyenji had no choice but to sit where she had been, right next to Huo Xiaoheng. She didn't want to socialize with the three women she wasn't familiar with anyway. She preferred to sit next to Huo Xiaoheng. There are a lot of things he needs to cry about. Chui Baiwen hiccuped. His face was red. His second uncle committed such a huge crime and even lost his life. His family looks fine, but actually, it's nothing. Bai Yuxing is Bai Yuxing and the Bai family is the Bai family. I'll take responsibility for what I did. It's not like we're in the business these days. Huo Xiaoheng said nonchalantly as he poured himself another glass. His calm demeanor made it impossible for anyone to guess that Bai Yuxing, who had caused Bai Tianquan to cry and the entire Bai family to hate and miss him, had died at his hands. Don't say such depressing things. Come on, drink up. Hong Ziki came over noisily to pour them wine. Gu Nianji stared at the Maotai in front of her. She sniffed, her large eyes full of desire. There were some things she didn't dare do when she was sober. There were some things she didn't dare say when she was sober. If she was drunk, would she dare to do those things and say those things? Gu Nianji mustered up her courage and wanted to ask for wine. She didn't expect Hua Xiaoheng to speak first. You want a drink? Gu Nianji's neck stiffened, but she nodded stiffly. Hua Xiaoheng thought about it. He took an unopened pair of chopsticks and dipped them in his glass. He picked them up and brought them to Gu Nianji's lips. He said dryly, "Open your mouth." Gu Nianji felt her neck stiffen even more. She opened her lips mechanically and stuck out her tongue to lick the chopsticks Hua Xiaoheng handed her. Hua Xiaoheng swallowed hard. His Adam's apple bobbed up and down, but his expression was calm and gentle. "Can you drink it?" he asked Gu Nianji. Gu Nianji nodded mechanically. She was crying inside. Asking someone to lick the wine on the chopsticks was like asking a 4- or 5-year-old child. Was she no different from a 4- or 5-year-old child in Hua Xiaoheng's heart? Gu Nianji felt a surge of courage. No, she couldn't let Hua Xiaoheng think she was still a child. Yes, she was already 18 years old. She was an adult. She was old, really old. She steeled herself and walked past Hua Xiaoheng to pick up the bottle. She poured herself a small glass and smiled at Hua Xiaoheng. "Hua Xiaoheng, let me toast you. You've worked hard all these years. Take a good rest today." Hua Xiaoheng's right hand rested on the back of her chair. He turned sideways to look at her. His deep eyes were as calm as an unfathomable lake. He slowly raised his glass with his left hand and clinked it with Gu Nianji's. Hua Xiaoheng drained his glass in one gulp. Gu Nianji saw this and also raised her glass to drink it. The 4 drunk men nearby saw this and clapped their hands. Amazing. Amazing. As expected of the Hua family. Good alcohol tolerance means good character. Little Gu, you're my friend for sure. Shui Jingjiang was the loudest. He even brought his own glass over to have a drink with Gu Nianji. Gu Nianji had just downed a glass of Maotai. She didn't feel anything at first. The wine was mellow and sweet, and the aftertaste lingered. Her internal organs felt warm and good. But after a while her head began to spin. She felt like she was floating and her weight seemed to have lightened. She wanted to fly. Seeing Shui Jingjiang come over to toast her, Gu Nianji remembered to look at Hua Xiaoheng to see if he agreed. Hua Xiaoheng calmly poured her another glass. "Drink some more. It's rare for your brother Shui to be so happy today." This was the second update of the day, and also a total of 13,500 words. It included the additional update for Ren Xiaoyao 2722, The Great July Immortal Fate. On the first day of September, give your monthly votes and recommendation votes to the Major General. Chapter 206. This time Hua Xiaoheng only filled Gu Nianji's glass halfway. Shui Jingjiang was drunk and didn't mind. Gu Nianji was a young girl, so it was good enough for her to drink with him. Seeing that Hua Xiaoheng didn't object, Gu Nianji took the glass and clinked it lightly with Shui Jingjiang's before downing it. Cui Baifei saw this and also came over with his glass. Hey, little Gu's really good at hiding her true colors. Her face hasn't changed even after 2 glasses. This little sister is good. I've noticed that she doesn't drink to her head, but she can really hold her liquor. Hong Ziki burped and felt a little uncomfortable. He stood up and said, "You guys keep drinking, I'm going out for a walk." Although Hong Ziki's girlfriend, Gua Huaning, was singing karaoke with Mrs. Cui and Shui Xinran on the other side of the room, her attention was on the table. Seeing that Hong Ziki was drunk and about to go out, she went to take care of him. Cui Baifei poured Gu Nianji a glass from the bottle and said to Hua Xiaoheng, who was smiling faintly, "Hua Xiao, this time it's me and little Gu drinking, don't mind me. I'll finish it all, little Gu, you can drink as much as you want." As he spoke, he tilted his head back and downed his glass. Gu Nianji didn't wait for Hua Xiaoheng to speak and had already stood up with her glass. She raised it at Cui Baifei. "Thank you, brother Cui, I'll definitely drink with you." She finished her glass as she spoke. She drank in a hurry and coughed twice after drinking. Her face gradually turned red, like the white snow in early winter dyed with rouge. She was drunk and her cheeks were red. Amorous feelings arose in her eyes, and as she looked around, they formed threads of lingering love in people's hearts. Hua Xiaoheng froze and pulled her to sit on the sofa behind the table. He gently patted her back to calm her down. Cui Baifei and Shui Jingjiang, who were used to seeing all kinds of beautiful women, were stunned. They only came back to their senses when Huo Xiaoheng's sharp gaze landed on them. They giggled and returned to their seats to play rock, paper, scissors. 5, 6, 4, 4. No, 8. Bai Tianquan had just cried and drank a lot of wine. He also felt uncomfortable, but he couldn't stand up. He looked around the private room for a long time before he found Xue Xinran, who was sitting behind the screen and singing. He shouted, "Xinran, Xinran." Xue Xinran turned to look at him. She knew that he had drunk too much and wanted to go out for a while. She said to Mrs. Cui, "I'll be right back." Mrs. Cui also wanted to go out for a walk. She stood up and said, "You go take care of Bai Tianquan. I need to go out for a while." She and Xue Xinran walked around the screen to the table. Seeing Xue Jingjiang and Cui Baifei happily playing rock, paper, scissors, she didn't disturb them. Xue Xinran helped Bai Tianquan out of the room, and Mrs. Cui followed behind them. At the corner they parted ways. Xue Xinran and Bai Tianquan went to the unisex family bathroom, while Mrs. Cui went to the ladies' bathroom. After they left, the private room seemed empty. There was only the sound of the karaoke machine behind the screen and the two men arguing at the opposite table. Gu Nianji felt the effects of the alcohol kick in. Her eyes were a little dazed, and her mind alternated between sober and confused. She gradually grew bolder. Huo Xiaoheng helped her breathe for a while. Seeing that she had stopped coughing, he finally let go. However, he didn't take his arm back. Instead, he rested it on the back of the sofa behind her. His tall body leaned slightly towards her. He crossed his legs and looked straight ahead. The expression on his face was very calm, but his aura enveloped Gu Nianji. Gu Nianji sat motionless and only glanced sideways. Seeing that Huo Xiaoheng wasn't looking in her direction, the alcohol emboldened her. Slowly and discreetly, she inched back towards the back of the sofa, step by step. However, although she was drunk, she still had a trace of rationality left in her. She didn't dare to be too presumptuous. Instead, she just wanted to get a little closer and pretend that she was in his arms. Huo Xiaoheng's body reeked of alcohol and a little smoke. However, it wasn't unpleasant at all. Instead, it made him look manly. Gu Nianji closed her eyes and savored the intoxicating scent of Huo Xiaoheng's body. She quietly took another step back. At that moment, Huo Xiaoheng leaned in front of her and grabbed an ashtray from the small coffee table on the other side of the sofa. The sofa suddenly sank. Gu Nianji, who had been sneakily leaning back, was caught off guard. In an instant, she completely rolled into Huo Xiaoheng's arms. Her eyes widened and she didn't know where to put her hands and feet. Huo Xiaoheng looked down at her. His deep eyes were as dark as ink. She couldn't see the slightest emotion. "What are you doing? Can't sit still?" Huo Xiaoheng asked calmly. He still maintained his posture, but his arms were still far away. It seemed like he didn't want to touch Gu Nianji. Gu Nianji closed her eyes and leaned her head back to lean against Huo Xiaoheng's arm that was behind her. She made a spineless excuse. "I'm dizzy." She wanted to lean against him. "Dizzy? Did you drink too much?" Huo Xiaoheng casually moved the arm he had placed on the sofa behind Gu Nianji to encircle her in his arms. He put down the ashtray with his other hand and touched her forehead. If Gu Nianji still didn't know how to deal with this, then she would have wasted all this time following Huo Xiaoheng. The effects of the alcohol were at its peak. Her spirit was boiling and her courage grew. She reached out and held the large hand that Huo Xiaoheng had just used to test the temperature of her forehead. She said coquettishly, "It hurts. Rub it." Chapter 207. Gu Nianji had a pair of very mesmerizing eyes. Her pupils were especially dark, almost like they had a natural contact lens effect. When she looked at you attentively, her clear eyes were like an innocent fawn, with the innocence of a child and the cunning of a young girl. Huo Xiaoheng was about to get up when Gu Nianji wrapped her arms around his neck. This position forced him to hover above her body, trying his best to maintain his balance. But he didn't say anything and just looked at her quietly. Gu Nianji's consciousness alternated between clear and muddled, but she still firmly remembered what she had to do. "Huo Xiao." She finally spoke. Her soft voice had a hint of alcohol in it, and her voice was intoxicating. "Yes." He placed both hands on the pillow beside her head and looked at her intently with his dark, jade-like eyes. She could even see her own reflection in his eyes. "Huo Xiao." Gu Nianji called his name again, her eyes glazed over. "I want to ask you a question." "Speak." Gu Nianji felt her mouth go dry. She couldn't help licking her lips and mumbling, "Do you have a girlfriend?" She finally asked the question that concerned her the most. Gu Nianji felt that this was the most important question compared to all the flirting little temptress had said. She had to find out if Hua Xiao had a girlfriend before she could decide what to do. Hua Xiaoheng was slightly taken aback. Girlfriend? His brows quickly furrowed. Why do you ask? Hadn't he already told Big Xiong to tell Nianji that he didn't have a girlfriend? Didn't Big Xiong say anything? He actually dared to disobey a military order. A certain someone was probably itching for a beating. Yin Shixiang, who was strolling around in the 6th Military Region's headquarters, suddenly sneezed. Gu Nianji didn't know what Hua Xiaoheng was thinking. She clutched Hua Xiaoheng's neck tightly, afraid that he would turn around and leave. I just want to know. What do you want me to do now that you know? Hua Xiaoheng's eyes grew darker, and there was a hidden meaning in them that Gu Nianji couldn't understand. She pulled out a hand and gently stroked Hua Xiaoheng's eyes. Her face was full of glee as she said, Then tell me first. Do you have it or not? So what? So what if I don't? So annoying. If I tell you to say it, just say it. No multiple choice questions. Gu Nianji pouted and pouted coquettishly. She was much bolder than usual. Hua Xiaoheng couldn't help but laugh. Alcohol really made people brave. If Nianji was sober, she wouldn't even talk back to him, let alone touch his face. She had always been exceptionally obedient in front of him. Yes, no. He grabbed Gu Nianji's hand, which was caressing his face, and pressed it against the pillow. Gu Nianji giggled, her eyes sparkling like the stars in the sky were reflected in her eyes. Oh, that's great. What's so good about it? Hua Xiaoheng pressed down and gradually got closer to Gu Nianji, who was lying on the bed. Gu Nianji focused her attention on Hua Xiaoheng's handsome face. She sighed contentedly. Of course it's good if you don't. Then let me ask you again, have you ever liked anyone? Say it. Do you have someone you like? Gu Nianji hugged Hua Xiaoheng's neck and shook it. Hua Xiaoheng rarely saw Gu Nianji act like this, especially after she turned 15. He couldn't help but love her so much that he couldn't bear to let her go. He lowered his body and turned around with Gu Nianji in his arms. He leaned against the exquisite lacquered bed and let Gu Nianji lie on top of him. His usually stern face had a slight smile, and his low magnetic voice could almost suck a person's heart out. Say someone you like? Okay, you go first. Gu Nianji. She couldn't wrap her head around it. I go first? Say what? Someone you like. Aren't you going to say someone you like? Hua Xiaoheng looked at Gu Nianji with a smile. Gu Nianji propped her elbows on top of him and looked up. Her curved willowy brows furrowed. Are you going to say someone I like? No way. I'm not asking about someone you like. She tapped Hua Xiaoheng's heart with her finger. Don't interrupt. Say it, say someone you like. You go first. But you don't care who I like? Why should I say it first? He had to say that even when Gu Nianji was drunk, she kept her secret firmly and refused to say it. If I care, you'll say it? Yeah. Gu Nianji nodded seriously. Of course. Okay, then I care. Hua Xiaoheng's reply was even more perfunctory. What do you mean I care? Gu Nianji muttered a few times to express her displeasure. Then she started counting on her fingers to name the person she liked. He must be handsome, tall, good-looking, powerful, good at everything, and good to me. Hua Xiaoheng suddenly felt like King Hal. That was the person she liked? According to this standard, there were at least 10,000 people in the entire imperial capital. Even a little girl could fool people when she was drunk. Had he, Big Xiong, and little Zhe taught her to resist seduction too well in the past? Yeah, me too. Hua Xiaoheng also began to go along with Gu Nianji's words. The person I like has to be beautiful, coquettish, powerful, good at everything, and good to me. Gu Nianji's brain couldn't process it anymore. She stared blankly at Hua Xiaoheng. What a coincidence, Hua Xiao. Why do we like the same person? It's not a coincidence. You grew up with me, so you like the same person. What's so strange about that? Hua Xiaoheng folded his hands behind his head and leisurely leaned against the lacquered bed. Gu Nianji rubbed her head. She felt like there was something she hadn't said. She moved forward and climbed up Hua Xiaoheng's body to his chest. Using it as a platform, her big, wet eyes blinked in front of his eyes. Hua Xiao, have you ever thought about finding a girlfriend? Why are you so concerned about my girlfriend today? Hua Xiaoheng gave her a sidelong glance and wrapped his arm around her slender waist to prevent her from rolling off the bed. Your girlfriend? Didn't you just say you don't have one? Gu Nianji's heart wrenched. How could you lie? You liar. You're such a liar. As she spoke, she actually began to cry. She lay on Hua Xiaoheng's chest and sobbed with great sincerity. Xiaoheng looked up at the top of the lacquered bed. He was speechless. It was even harder to deal with a drunk girl than when she wasn't. He took a few deep breaths and turned to the side to move away from the sensitive parts of his body. He took a tissue from the bedside table and wiped Gunyanji's tears. "Don't cry so easily. I said I don't have one, so I don't have one. Alright, don't cry anymore." "Really?" Gunyanji took the tissue and wiped her nose. "You really can't lie to me. This is really important to me." Xiaoheng was silent for a while. "Why is it important to you whether I have a girlfriend or not? That's none of your business." Gunyanji wiped her tears and felt much better. She lay back on Xiaoheng's chest and looked at him in fascination. Xiaoheng didn't move. He let her stare for a long time before lifting her up and laying her on her side. He asked nonchalantly, "You and Mei Xiaowen didn't work out because you already have someone you like?" Gunyanji didn't notice and blurted out her true thoughts. "Yes, I do have someone I like. I'll only like him for the rest of my life. If I can't be with him, I won't be with anyone else. I'd rather be alone for the rest of my life." "What kind of person is that?" Xiaoheng asked calmly. His face was expressionless. "Of course he's good. He's good at everything. He's almost a perfect person." Gunyanji sighed and leaned her head on Xiaoheng's shoulder. She was extremely satisfied. "How can there be a perfect person?" Xiaoheng laughed. "Nianji, don't think too highly of men." He paused and asked, "Who is he?" "It's the second night shift. Our monthly votes are too good. I have no choice but to wait until the third night shift. Our monthly votes have been cast. There's still the third night shift at 7 p.m. What do you think?" Chapter 208. When Xiaoheng asked this, his gaze fell on the top of the lacquered bed and did not look at Gunyanji. He waited for a long time, but Gunyanji was still silent. Tilting his head, he saw that she had already fallen asleep. Xiaoheng looked at her silently for a while, then leaned down and kissed her forehead. His burning hot lips pressed against her bright and clean forehead, and there was actually a feeling of electricity. Xiaoheng paused before slowly moving away. He touched Gunyanji's face and stood up with a complicated expression. In a young girl's heart, liking and disliking were two very simple and pure things. However, if two people really wanted to be together, it wasn't something that could be decided by liking or disliking. Xiaoheng straightened his collar, opened the door to the private room and walked out. Outside the door, Shui Jingjiang and the others had returned and were singing karaoke at the top of their lungs. Xiaoheng walked over and sat on the sofa. Hong Ziki quickly came over to talk to him. "Xiao, can I ask if you're close with that Barbados rich lady, Gu Yanran?" "No," Xiaoheng answered briefly. "Why do you ask?" "It's like this. Didn't she want to transfer her assets to our country? We were going to invest heavily in a few areas. The great fool Shui Little Chui and I had a project and Gu Yanran's people came over to take a look. They were quite satisfied and planned to invest. However, we aren't familiar with her. I heard that you once did her a big favor, so I wanted to ask you." Hong Ziki said in one breath and then said, "But don't feel burdened. You don't need to show favoritism in this matter. Business is business, private is private. We're just trying to find out if she's really rich. It would be awkward if she's a liar." "Oh." Xiaoheng nodded. "Not to the extent of being a scammer. The Gus are considered wealthy in Barbados. Of course, this is a small country, so don't overestimate their strength." As they talked about business, Shui Baiwen and Shui Jingjiang joined them. Bai Tianxuan remained silent. When they were done, Bai Tianxuan wiped his face and said to Xiaoheng, "Xiao, do you know about my second uncle?" "I don't know. What happened?" Xiaoheng's explanation was flawless. Even if Yin Shixiang, who had worked with him, saw him like this, he would probably think that his mission back then was an illusion and that it had never happened. Bai Tianxuan painfully said, "Our family was thinking that although second uncle made a big mistake, he is also dead. Could we bring his body back to our country and bury it with our family? He's drifting alone in a foreign country." Xiaoheng's eyes narrowed imperceptibly, and a glint flashed across his eyes. He looked down and tapped one hand on his thigh as he shook his head. "There's no point in telling me this. If you want to plead for leniency, your Bai family's first branch will have a say." It was Bai Yueran's branch. They were against bringing Bai Yuxing's body back. Bai Tianxuan didn't have a choice. He spread his hands and said, "Alright, I also know that second uncle was ridiculously wrong, so he deserved this outcome. I've already done what my family told me to do. It'll be easier for me to report when I get back." Hua Xiaoheng smiled again and turned to ask Shui Jingjiang and the others about the project they were working on. Time passed very quickly when the men started to talk about business. When Gu Nianji woke up, she realized it was already past 4 in the afternoon. Her head was still dizzy, and she didn't feel any better after sleeping. She lay on the bed for a while before she heard the door open. Hua Xiaoheng walked in. "You're already awake? Let's go eat dinner. It's all set up outside." Hua Xiaoheng stood ramrod straight in front of the bed and looked down at her. Gu Nianji squinted uncomfortably and tried to recall what she had said and done before she fell asleep. However, her mind was a mess and she couldn't figure it out no matter how hard she tried. "Alright, stop shaking me. Let's go eat and then we'll go home." Hua Xiaoheng reached out to pull her up. She threw herself forward into Hua Xiaoheng's arms. Hua Xiaoheng was speechless. He felt that something was different about Gu Nianji now that she was awake. Gu Nianji smiled and wrapped her arms around Hua Xiaoheng's waist to give him a hug. She quickly let go and supported herself against the wall as she left the room. Although she walked unsteadily, she didn't show any signs of falling. When she exited the small room, she saw 2 tables set up outside. This time it was a table for the men and another table for the women. Because everyone was eating medicinal cuisine, the men ate different medicinal cuisine than the women ate, so they had to be separated. When Gu Nianji, Mrs. Cui, Shui Xinran, and Guo Huaning ate, she discovered that they were drinking red wine. "Nianji, this 1982 Lafite tastes pretty good." Guo Huaning poured a small glass for Gu Nianji. "It's mellow. I like it." Gu Nianji had just drunk Maotai that morning. It was white wine, so now they were asking for red wine. She wanted to refuse, but when she saw how excited Mrs. Cui and Shui Xinran were, and how the men were focused on their own business, she gritted her teeth and forced herself to drink. As expected, the white wine she had drunk in the morning hadn't been metabolized yet, so it was mixed with the red wine. When Hua Xiaoheng finally realized what was going on and asked her to stop drinking, she was already more drunk than she had been in the morning. Mrs. Cui and Shui Xinran were embarrassed. They quickly said, "It's our fault, we didn't know little Gu's tolerance was so low." Guo Huaning, who had been the most aggressive in persuading Gu Nianji to drink, shrank to the side and said nothing. "It's not a matter of tolerance. Even a man with a high tolerance can't handle the combination of high-quality white wine and high-quality red wine." Shui Jingjiang sighed and called for Gu Nianji to be stewed to sober her up. Hua Xiaoheng looked at the time. It was almost 6 o'clock. He hugged Gu Nianji and said, "It's fine, I'll take her home. We've been out all day, it's time to go back." He had originally come out with Gu Nianji to buy things for his mother, but they had ended up shopping all day. He had drunk so much that he couldn't drive. He had no choice but to call Fan Jian and ask him to pick them up at the underground parking lot of Xi'an Plaza. Gu Nianji was completely drunk. She didn't remember getting in the car or how she got home. She only remembered curling into a warm embrace as soon as the night wind blew. Her mind, which had been muddled from her nap, was starting to connect again. In her drunken stupor, Gu Nianji recalled their unfinished conversation. Hua Xiaoheng draped an arm around her shoulders and led her to his suite on the first floor. Gu Nianji clung to his arm and said drunkenly, "Hua Xiao, you want to know who I like, don't you? I remember you asked." Hua Xiaoheng didn't say anything and calmly walked into his room. Gu Nianji's hand caressed the side of his face impatiently, then moved forward to his lips. Her fingers traced the shape of his lips as she sleep-talked. "The person in my heart is you, Uncle Hua." "Hua Xiao." "Xiaoheng?" As soon as Gu Nianji called out Xiaoheng, Hua Xiaoheng had already kicked the door open and nimbly turned around. He grabbed her arms with one hand and pushed them high into the air. With the other hand, he raked his fingers through her black hair and pressed her against the wall by the door. Without a word, he leaned down and rained kisses on her curvy lips. Gu Nianji's seductive skills were laughably childish, but to him, it was the most difficult test of his life. The moment she said his name, she was the most powerful weapon in the world, destroying all of his toughness. Hua Xiaoheng kissed her like he was gnawing on her, his lips ravaging hers. The tip of his tongue pried open her tightly closed lips and delved into her fragrant interior, wanting nothing more than to block all her breath. His lips and tongue ravaged her, washing her. He kissed her thoroughly inside and out. This was not enough. He even started to bite her lips bit by bit, and then bit the tip of her tongue, forcefully holding it and refusing to let go. Gu Nianji was completely sober the moment Hua Xiaoheng pounced on her and kissed her. She was forcefully pressed against the wall by Hua Xiaoheng and passively enduring his kisses. Her entire body was trembling, and her consciousness was beyond her control. She couldn't believe that all of this was real. She felt like she was dreaming, and there really was everything in a dream, including the most impossible person's wild kisses. It was just like how she used to secretly fantasize about it every night. His strong arms surpassed even her boldest imagination, and were more perfect than all of her imaginations. He kissed me. He kissed me. He really kissed me. Gu Nianji's entire body trembled as if she had been electrocuted. She tried to respond. She also wanted to feel him, wanted to know if all of this was real or just a dream. But she couldn't move because of Huo Xiaoheng. She was completely under his control, and even her breathing was involuntarily controlled. Even her lips and tongue were tightly sucked in by him. The tip of his tongue moved in and out of her lips, bringing with it waves of soreness and numbness. But she didn't feel suffocated, nor did she feel pain. She only wanted to surrender to his most powerful shackles. She was willing to be imprisoned by his love and become a prison. Huo Xiaoheng's breath on his lips carried the sweet taste of alcohol and a little smoke. There was also the faint smell of sulfur between his fingers. It was the smell of gunpowder from bullets and leather. The strange thing was that when these scents were mixed together, it didn't smell bad at all. Instead, it was filled with an indescribable masculinity that strongly attracted Gu Nianji. It made her think of desert dust, river sunset, a general in uniform, a bow and arrow in his hand, a wine pouch at his waist, and prey on horseback. Gu Nianji's legs grew weaker and weaker, and she couldn't stand. She could only wrap around him like soft vines. If Huo Xiaoheng hadn't raised her hands to support them against the wall with one hand, she really would have slipped to the ground. But after holding them for a long time, Gu Nianji couldn't help feeling her arms ache. She cried out twice and began to struggle. Huo Xiaoheng paused and finally stopped the torrential kisses. He moved away from her lips and let go of her arms. He lowered his head and buried it against Gu Nianji's neck, slowly calming his heavy breathing. This was the third 3,000-word update. It was the first time Willow Deity Whisper had added an update to the spiritual pet fate in July. My dear friends, monthly votes are too amazing. I had no choice but to update 3 times today. Oh, __. Oh. Chapter 209. Gu Nianji could feel Huo Xiaoheng's hot breath lingering around her neck, and she couldn't help feeling very excited. She reached out with trembling hands, and her movements were very gentle. She reached out from under Huo Xiaoheng's armpits and wrapped her arms around his broad back. Because of this position, her entire body was nestled in Huo Xiaoheng's hot embrace. Huo Xiaoheng didn't make a sound. His heavy breathing gradually subsided, and he remained motionless as he leaned over and rested his head on Gu Nianji's shoulder. 1 centimeter more and he would be able to touch her soft, delicate and slender neck, but he didn't move further. Gu Nianji hugged Huo Xiaoheng tightly with satisfaction. He was so tall, so strong, and his entire body could almost cover her, but she still couldn't help reaching out and trying her best to feel and touch the only man in her heart. Huo Xiaoheng's hands were pressed against the wall, and he tried his best to maintain a physical distance from Gu Nianji. Gu Nianji was completely immersed in the ecstasy of being intimate with the man she loved. She didn't even feel Huo Xiaoheng's body move away. She only instinctively turned her head, and her soft lips gently swept across Huo Xiaoheng's earlobe. Her lips were so soft, and the earlobe was one of the most sensitive parts of the human body. Huo Xiaoheng was caught off guard, and a heart-wrenching numbness spread from his earlobe. It almost destroyed the perseverance he had just put up. Nianji. Huo Xiaoheng opened his mouth to call her. His voice was extremely hoarse and low, like he was calling from the depths of his heart. Gu Nianji's heart skipped a beat. Without hesitation, she opened her red lips and sucked on Huo Xiaoheng's earlobe. Huo Xiaoheng let out an extremely low growl from the depths of his throat. His entire body was about to explode. He clenched his fists against the wall and used almost all of his self-control, as well as the professional discipline of forbearance and restraint that had been cultivated in the military for many years. Only then did he not do anything that would get out of hand. But Gu Nianji didn't seem to know the devastating impact of her actions on Huo Xiaoheng. Or maybe she knew but she didn't care. At a time like this, she only wanted to do whatever she wanted to the man she loved. She wanted to make him happy and she wanted to make herself happy. She wanted to feel the joy of this moment. It was like he had set a fire on her and she wanted this fire to burn on him. She wanted him to know that she had grown up. Gu Nianji sucked on Huo Xiaoheng's earlobe even harder. Huo Xiaoheng took a few deep breaths before reaching out to pinch Gu Nianji's chin and force her to release his earlobe. Gu Nianji moved aside impatiently to avoid Huo Xiaoheng's fingers. Huo Xiaoheng took the opportunity to stand up straight and save his earlobe. Unexpectedly, the next moment, Gu Nianji was pestering him again. Standing on her tiptoes, she raised her head and closed her eyes. Pouting her red lips, she moved closer to Hua Xiaoheng's face. However, Hua Xiaoheng was too tall. Even if she stood on her tiptoes, she could only reach his chin. "Lower your head, Xiaoheng," Gu Nianji begged him softly. Hua Xiaoheng sighed and bent down to bring his lips to hers. Gu Nianji giggled and reached out to caress his lips with her finger for a long time before gently pressing her lips against his. Her voice was muffled as she whispered against his lips. "You're so hard, but your lips are quite soft." Hua Xiaoheng didn't want to pay attention to her meaningless whispers. He only quietly moved his hard body a step back. Gu Nianji kissed him carefully, then kissed him again. Finally, she softly pressed her lips tightly against Hua Xiaoheng's. Then she stuck out the softer tip of her tongue and mimicked Hua Xiaoheng's actions. She licked his lips once. Hua Xiaoheng closed his eyes and wrapped his arms around Gu Nianji. He really couldn't resist her playful kisses, so he took the initiative again and kissed her lips very gently. Then he moved up from her lips to the tip of her delicate nose, and then up to her forehead like a dragonfly skimming the surface of the water. He kissed her there again. It was a kiss that didn't contain any strong emotions like a goodnight kiss. Gu Nianji's pounding heart gradually calmed down with Hua Xiaoheng's gentle kiss. She raised her head and looked at Hua Xiaoheng's calm face. Her large eyes were full of hope. Hua Xiaoheng released her and said hoarsely, "Go shower and sleep early." Gu Nianji didn't expect him to tell her to sleep early after such an intense kiss. Hua Xiaoheng ignored her and turned to open the master bedroom door to take a shower in the guest bedroom. It was winter in the imperial capital, so even with central air conditioning, the cold water was still very cold. However, Hua Xiaoheng had no choice but to take a cold shower to calm his hot body. After showering, he put on his black short-sleeved t-shirt and a pair of pajama pants of the same color and sat alone on the bay windowsill in the guest bedroom. Opening the window a crack, he lit a cigarette and started smoking silently. Today he actually had such an uncontrollable impulse which really made him vigilant. Perhaps Gu Nianji's influence on him was greater than he thought. He silently lowered his thick eyelashes and held the cigarette between two fingers. He gently blew out a white smoke ring. Looking up at the thick night sky and the snow that hadn't melted yet, his heart had already hardened again. After Gu Nianji finished showering, she also changed into the black t-shirt Hua Xiaoheng gave her as pajamas. The long pajamas covered half of her thighs. Against the black background, the other half of her thighs looked even more fair and slender. She sat in front of the vanity for a while with her wet hair and dried it with the hairdryer before returning to the bed. Looking at the time, it was only 8 o'clock. She wasn't sleepy at all and didn't think about going to bed. Touching her nearly swollen lips, Gu Nianji recalled the kiss just now. Her heart was in turmoil and couldn't calm down for a while. Sometimes she felt incredibly lucky and happy, but sometimes she felt that happiness came too quickly and made her dizzy. She almost couldn't believe it was real. But regardless of whether she believed it or not, Hua Xiaoheng really did kiss her. She couldn't be dreaming, could she? Thinking about the passionate kiss just now, Gu Nianji's heart heated up even more. She lifted the blankets and got out of bed. Pacing around the room, she finally couldn't resist looking for Hua Xiaoheng. Arriving at the door of Hua Xiaoheng's guest bedroom, Gu Nianji gently knocked on the door. There was no light in the room, so Gu Nianji wasn't sure if Hua Xiaoheng was in the room. Also, no one answered her. She knocked for a long time but no one responded. She steeled her heart and gently pushed the door to the guest bedroom. It actually opened. Gu Nianji was speechless. The room was indeed dark, but it wasn't so dark that she couldn't see anything. As soon as she opened the door, she saw Hua Xiaoheng sitting on the bay windowsill. He had a cigarette in his hand and his long legs were on the windowsill. One leg was bent and the other was extended as he leaned lazily against the large pillow. Gu Nianji opened her mouth and wanted to call him Xiaoheng, but when the words were on the tip of her tongue, she felt a little ashamed. It was a very normal name, but because of what he had just done, it seemed to Gu Nianji that it had become a little secret between lovers. She didn't want to share this taboo with others and she didn't want to call him that in front of others. Composing herself, Gu Nianji slowly walked over. "Hua Xiao, you can't sleep either?" Hua Xiaoheng didn't move. He held the cigarette in his hand and watched Gu Nianji walk closer. Turning his head, he stubbed out the cigarette in the ashtray and closed the bay window tightly. He said dryly, "Are you done showering?" "Yeah." Gu Nianji walked to the bay windowsill and sat on the other side, facing him from a distance. She didn't dare to look up. Instead, she dragged a large pillow over and hugged it to her chest. Mustering up her courage, she asked, Huo Xiao, I just said what was on my mind. Do you have anything to say to me? This was the first 2,400-word update. My dear friends, your monthly votes yesterday were so awesome. Thank you for your monthly votes. Will there be any more today? Thank you for the Heshabi that the leader of the Enigmayangsi Alliance rewarded yesterday. Mwah. There would be an extra update at 7 p.m. Chapter 210. Huo Xiaoheng propped an arm on his bent left leg and looked at Gu Nianji, who was hanging her head. He looked out the window and smiled faintly. What do you want to say? Gu Nianji was speechless. She suddenly felt uncomfortable. He shouldn't be like this. She had already said what was on her mind. How could he not respond? Gu Nianji looked up angrily and bravely said, I already said I like you. What about you? Huo Xiaoheng nodded and said nonchalantly, thank you. Gu Nianji exploded. She was so angry that she got up and threw the pillow in her arms at Huo Xiaoheng. Huo Xiaoheng blocked it with his arm and the pillow flew to the other side of the room. Seeing that the pillow couldn't attack Huo Xiaoheng, Gu Nianji could only use herself as a weapon and pounced at him. Huo Xiaoheng reached out to catch her and let her sit beside him. He patted her back and smiled faintly. Are you crazy? Can't you let me think about it? Gu Nianji became even angrier. He had already hugged and kissed her and he still wanted to think about it. Think about what? Are you going to say that you drank too much? That's why you had sex after drinking? Gu Nianji was so anxious that she didn't know what to say. If you dare say that, I'll run away from home. Gu Nianji glared at Huo Xiaoheng fiercely. She was terrified that he would say something heartless. After all, Huo Xiaoheng had always been strict with her and wouldn't agree to unreasonable requests no matter how much she argued. She remembered that when she was 13 years old, there was a time when she really liked to play games, almost to the point of addiction. Huo Xiaoheng discovered it when he came back from a mission and said he wouldn't let her play. No matter if she cried, threw a tantrum, went on a hunger strike, or ran away, he made her submit without any room for negotiation. In the end, she got rid of her gaming addiction, but her fear of Huo Xiaoheng was still deep in her bones. She moved closer to Huo Xiaoheng and grabbed his arm to look at him nervously. Huo Xiaoheng turned his breathtakingly handsome face and looked at her silently. Then he smiled at her. Gu Nianji was dazzled by the pure white snow floating outside the window. His smile dazzled her so much that she almost lost her mind. Then she heard his voice, which seemed to come from the sky. You want to know my answer? Flirt with me. Seduce you? Gu Nianji's breath was stuck in her throat. She was almost scared silly. He. How did he know that I wanted to flirt with him? That's right. Once you've flirted, I'll be yours. Huo Xiaoheng leaned forward and patted Gu Nianji's face. He smiled at her dazed expression. He had never been so relaxed before. He leaned against the large pillow with one arm resting on his bent left leg. His right leg was stretched out on the bay windowsill. His gaze lingered on her for a moment before moving out of the window. She was shocked for a full minute before she found her tongue and stammered, You. Are you serious? You can't joke about this kind of thing. The expression on his face was so nervous that he almost cried. I'm not joking. Huo Xiaoheng turned his head and reached out a finger to lift Gu Nianji's chin. I've always kept to my word. Gu Nianji closed her eyes and moved her chin away angrily. There was a little person in her heart screaming, Come on. Hurt each other. Who's afraid of who? It's just flirting. As she thought this, she heard Huo Xiaoheng say leisurely, But what if you run away from home? You'll never be able to flirt with me. The little person in Gu Nianji's heart had already pulled out a knife and slashed at Huo Xiaoheng. Of course, she was only fantasizing about it in her heart. Huo Xiaoheng's powerful aura was evident. Even flirting with him required his consent. But you kissed me just now. Gu Nianji was unwilling to be completely suppressed by Huo Xiaoheng. She resisted weakly. Wasn't it because you like me? I already said it was alcohol. Huo Xiaoheng carelessly dusted off his pajama pants. I can't help it if you don't believe me. Gu Nianji was at her wit's end. She silently lowered her head and obediently said, Then please forgive me if I'm not good at flirting. Okay, work hard to improve your professional skills. Huo Xiaoheng patted her shoulder. I like your perceptivity. He looked like he was very much looking forward to the prospect of being flirted with. Gu Nianji pouted and secretly looked at Huo Xiaoheng. However, she couldn't tell what he was feeling at all. The passionate kiss just now was like a flash in the pan. It was a rare moment when Huo Xiaoheng lost control. It was too short. Gu Nianji sleepwalked out of Huo Xiaoheng's bedroom and returned to her own. She had cried and argued with Hua Xiaoheng and even tried to hit him. Gu Nianji thought about it now and only felt exhausted. She fell asleep as soon as she fell. After Gu Nianji left, Hua Xiaoheng didn't sleep. He turned to look out the window, and the smile on his face gradually faded into the darkness. He took out his phone and played with it for a while. Finally, he opened the address book and found General G's number. It was only 9 o'clock. General G was reading in the study. When he saw it was Hua Xiaoheng calling, he happily picked it up. "Xiaoheng, you're not asleep yet?" Hua Xiaoheng nodded. "Not yet." "General G, you're still reading?" "Yes, there are a few translated military works from abroad. I'm fascinated by them and have a lot of thoughts." General G put his reading glasses back on. "Alright, why are you calling me so late at night? What's the matter?" He knew that Hua Xiaoheng rarely called him outside of work hours. When he did, it meant he had something important to say. However, Hua Xiaoheng only exchanged a few pleasantries with him before asking some personal questions. "General G, if I want to get married, how long will the background check take?" "Get married?" General G almost fainted. He stood up abruptly. "When did you get a girlfriend? Why are you talking about getting married?" Hua Xiaoheng laughed. "I'm just asking about the procedure to see how long it will take. You know, I don't have much time to spend on personal matters. If I must get married, of course, it's better to be prepared early." He had a special status. He was a high-ranking military official and an important core member of the Special Intelligence Force. The woman who could marry him had to have all their family and social connections investigated. The background check could sometimes take several years. "Oh, that's more like it. You scared me so much that my high blood pressure almost flared up." General G slowly sat down. "It's good that you're planning ahead. However, as someone who's been through it, I still advise you not to get married just for the sake of getting married. Find a woman you like, get along with her, and then think about getting married. As for the background check, as long as you find a girl who matches your family background, the background check will definitely be quick. If you're not quick, come find me." Hua Xiaoheng chuckled. He didn't argue with General G. He only asked a lot more questions about the background check procedure. He used to think that these things were overly sensitive and never paid attention to them. He never dreamed that he would have to deal with the military's background check organization one day. After talking about the marriage background check, General G had a stroke of inspiration. He actually mentioned Gu Nianji. "Xiaoheng, how's Nianji lately? She's already 18 and doesn't need a guardian. I heard that you brought her back to your home?" "Yeah." Hua Xiaoheng put on his Bluetooth headset and spoke to General G. He turned on his computer and began to pull up various background check documents from the intranet to carefully study. "This girl has a good character, but unfortunately her background is unknown. Otherwise, I would have specially approved her to join the army and follow you as a little follower." General G laughed. "What a pity, what a pity." Hua Xiaoheng's fingers tightened around the mouse. He grunted. "We're still investigating her background, so she'll still follow me. Does General G have any objections?" No. General G quickly said, "It's best if she's willing to follow you. Don't push her away. I feel that she's very important, so you can't let your guard down." "Of course not." Hua Xiaoheng's lips curled into a faint smile. "Don't worry, General G. This was the second 2,400-word update. Do you still have monthly votes? I'm a bit busy today. Tomorrow I'll try for the third update." Chapter 211. Gu Nianji slept soundly, probably because she was too emotionally drained the night before. She didn't even dream. Hua Xiaoheng woke up at 6 a.m. sharp, and went to his gym to train for an hour and a half after washing up. He ran on the treadmill for half an hour, then did weightlifting, stretching, and boxing. With his stamina, this kind of intense training was only a warm-up. But because he was at home, he didn't have to do the same intense training as he did in the military, such as running 10 kilometers obstacle course every day. Gu Nianji often said he wasn't human. Hua Xiaoheng couldn't help smiling at the thought of Gu Nianji's reluctance, but not daring to speak up. A white towel hung around his neck as he walked out of the gym. He bumped into Hua Jialan. She was wearing a fitted 100-bird checkered Chanel dress suit. The dress was tight and accentuated her gourd-shaped figure. "Cousin brother, you went to the gym?" Hua Jialan was shocked. "Weren't you drunk last night? Doesn't your head hurt?" Hua Xiaoheng was wearing a black military vest, revealing his muscular arms and shoulders. Camouflage sweatpants hung loosely around his waist, his forehead beaded with sweat. He had a towel hanging from his neck so he could wipe it off at any time. He stopped when he saw Hua Jialan, and wiped the sweat off his forehead with the towel. It's all right, I met a few friends yesterday. Cousin, brother, second uncle and grandfather said we're having a New Year's party this time. Do you have any friends you want to invite? Give me the list, I'll send out the invitations. Hua Jialan stepped forward and raised her hand to pat Hua Xiaoheng's shoulder. Huh? What's this? Hua Xiaoheng instinctively stepped back to avoid Hua Jialan's hand. Okay, I'll get Nianji to give you the list when I get back. He nodded to Hua Jialan and walked towards his suite. Hua Jialan looked at Hua Xiaoheng's back, and smiled as she shook her head. Her cousin was still the same, too defensive around women. What should she do? Was she really going to be a bachelor for the rest of her life? The servant following her saw this and whispered, Eldest miss, what's wrong with eldest young master? She's helping him out of the goodness of her heart. It's fine, he's just like that. He's already treating his family the best. Hua Jialan left with a smile. Hua Xiaoheng returned to his suite and first went to the bathroom in the guest bedroom to shower. When he came out, he saw that Gu Nianji's bedroom door was still tightly shut. He looked at his watch. It was already 8 in the morning. Nianji, it's time to wake up. He knocked on the door. There was no sound from the other side of the door. He thought that Gu Nianji still wanted to sleep in, but thinking about yesterday, maybe she deserved a good rest. Hua Xiaoheng was about to turn to leave when he suddenly heard the door behind him open. He turned around just in time to see Gu Nianji standing by the door in his oversized black t-shirt. She was barefoot and her long snow-white legs looked breathtakingly fair against the black t-shirt. Hua Xiaoheng looked away and said dryly, You're awake? It's time to get up. Gu Nianji covered her mouth and yawned. When she opened her eyes to see that Hua Xiaoheng was about to leave, she instinctively grabbed his wrist. Hua Xiao, you're up? Well, do you want to exercise early? Hua Xiaoheng didn't turn around and said seriously, There's also a gym here and a treadmill. Do you want to go exercise? Gu Nianji hated treadmills, so she immediately let go of his wrist. Her eyes darted around and she said softly, I want to shower. Hua Xiao, I can't find my clothes. Can you help me find something to change into? With that, she turned to leave. Hua Xiaoheng turned around and saw that the door was ajar. Gu Nianji's long legs were alluring as she walked towards the bathroom. His Adam's apple bobbed up and down and he swallowed again. He instantly changed his mind and pushed the door open to follow her. Closing the door to Gu Nianji's bedroom, Hua Xiaoheng first went to the closet to look. He picked out a loose yellow cashmere pullover from Alice and Olivia, straight white custom-made wool trousers, and a pair of nude ankle boots to match. He put them on the sofa. When Gu Nianji came out of the bathroom with a towel wrapped around her, she saw Hua Xiaoheng standing in front of the French windows with his back to her. His hands were in his trouser pockets as he looked out at the beautiful scenery of white snow and red plum blossoms. The clothes are on the sofa. Hua Xiaoheng heard the bathroom door open and knew that Gu Nianji had finished showering. He said without turning around. Gu Nianji glanced at the loose yellow cashmere pullover, straight white trousers and nude ankle boots on the sofa. Her eyelids couldn't help but twitch. She thought to herself that Hua Xiao hadn't taken care of her daily life in the past few years, but he hadn't forgotten about it. When she had first started working for him, he had taken care of all her clothes from inside out. At that time, a young man of only 22 years old had to take care of a little girl like that. It must have been hard on him. Gu Nianji was touched and happy, but when she thought of Hua Xiaoheng's annoying words last night, she felt indignant. Didn't he want to hit on her? She coughed lightly and said, Hua Xiao, I have the outerwear, but what about the underwear? I can't just wear the outerwear, can I? Hua Xiaoheng was speechless. After a long time, his lips finally curved into a smile, but when he turned around, his expression had already returned to normal. Do you want underwear? Okay. He said calmly and walked to the closet again. He opened the bottom drawer and found where Gu Nianji kept her bra and panties. Gu Nianji's face instantly turned as red as blood. She was so embarrassed that she wanted to find a hole to hide in. However, Hua Xiaoheng only acted as if no one was around and rummaged through her colorful underwear drawer for a while. He asked without looking up, What cup size do you wear now? Gu Nianji's face darkened. She clenched her fists angrily and gritted her teeth as she said word by word, No. I'll find it myself. I thought you didn't know where you put it? Hua Xiaoheng finally turned around slowly and raised his long brows slightly. His dark, jade-like eyes were bottomless. Gu Nianji rushed to the closet and pushed Hua Xiaoheng away. She smiled and said, Didn't Hua Xiao find it for me? I can find it myself now. Gu Nianji turned around and grabbed a dark blue lace bra and panties of the same style from the drawer. She quickly closed the drawer. Really? Hua Xiaoheng looked down at her. Her flawless skin was fair and pink from the shower. There were still transparent water droplets on it. A drop of water flowed down her neck and into her chest, all the way to the cleavage wrapped in the bath towel. He smiled meaningfully. Is that so? I see. Then I'm leaving. He seemed to be dismissive of Gu Nianji's seduction methods. Gu Nianji's thoughts were exposed. She was furious and embarrassed. She looked at Hua Xiaoheng's back and saw that he was about to leave the bedroom. She suddenly said, "Why is Hua Xiao leaving? Isn't he going to wait to see if I look good in this?" Hua Xiaoheng stopped and let out a long sigh. After a moment of silence, he turned around and returned to the sofa. He put one hand on the back of the sofa and the other on his lap. He said calmly, "Okay, you change. I'll watch." Gu Nianji gritted her teeth and tried to take off the bath towel several times. However, under Hua Xiaoheng's intense gaze, her hands trembled for a long time and she couldn't undo the towel. After a while, Gu Nianji stomped her feet. Okay. You're good. I lost to you." She bent over, grabbed her clothes from the sofa and ran to the bathroom with them. Hua Xiaoheng didn't leave either. He waited for Gu Nianji to change and come out. He looked her up and down and was very satisfied with his taste. He stood up as well. "Let's go eat breakfast." Gu Nianji had already come back to her senses. She gathered her courage and walked over to take Hua Xiaoheng's hand. She looked up and said, "Hua Xiao, I think there's sand in my eyes. Can you blow it for me?" Hua Xiaoheng stared at her for a while and said leisurely, "Since you want to blow the sand in your eyes, why are you pouting and closing your eyes?" This was the 2,400-word update for the first time. Continue asking for monthly votes and recommendation votes. Thank you so much Mom, the Phantom Mark, the Jade Goddess Sword, and yesterday's gift of Heshabi. Mwah. Today is the first day of the Labor Day long weekend in the United States. I have guests at home, so the update is a little late. There will be an extra update at 7 p.m. If you want the third update, give your relatives some excitement with their monthly votes. Oh, __intersection. Oh. Chapter 212. Gu Nianji quickly opened her eyes to glare at Hua Xiaoheng. Her misty eyes were a little moist like she was about to cry, but there was also a bit of uneasiness and awkwardness. She was like an unripe fruit that was gradually showing its mature charm. Hua Xiaoheng was slightly taken aback. He couldn't help holding her cheeks and lowering his head to kiss her. It was different from the storm-like kiss last time. This time, he was extremely gentle as he pressed his lips against her incredibly soft lips. After carefully kissing her from top to bottom, he finally opened his lips slightly and sucked on her lips. Gu Nianji's lips were a little swollen and sore. She reached out to hug Hua Xiaoheng's waist and lay limply in his arms. Her heart was filled with excitement as she savored this extremely delicate kiss. Because she was nervous, her lips were pressed together a little tightly. Hua Xiaoheng spent a lot of effort to slowly make her open her lips and reveal a gap. The tip of his tongue took advantage of the opening and once again invaded her private territory. Like an emperor patrolling his territory, he finally hooked the tip of her delicate tongue up and down a few times. Gu Nianji's body couldn't help trembling. Could it be that her sensitive spot was the tip of her tongue? Why was it so soft that she couldn't stand steadily after a light touch? Hua Xiaoheng felt her body become increasingly soft. He released one hand and wrapped it around her slender waist. His other hand was still holding her cheek as he lowered his head to kiss her. Gu Nianji had always been a studious person and a very smart student. She quickly mastered the major elements of kissing and began to timidly give him a taste of his own medicine. Closing her lips, she mimicked Hua Xiaoheng and gently sucked on it. Hua Xiaoheng paused and couldn't help but tighten his grip. He held her tightly in his arms and parted his lips slightly. Gu Nianji couldn't miss this kind of invitation. She tentatively extended the tip of her tongue into Hua Xiaoheng's territory. However, she only managed to get her head in before the tip of Hua Xiaoheng's tongue met hers impatiently. He twisted her tongue gently and heavily, slowly crushing and teasing. Every time Gu Nianji felt that she had learned how to kiss, Hua Xiaoheng would surprise her even more the next time. Indeed, there was no end to the sea of learning. She was dizzy from Hua Xiaoheng's kisses. In a daze, she thought that the unyielding and decisive Major General Hua Xiaoheng could also be so gentle. After some time, the doorbell to the suite rang, and the orderly's voice came through the intercom. "Major General Hua, breakfast is ready." He was urging them to have breakfast. Hua Xiaoheng released Gu Nianji's lips and combed her messy hair. Gu Nianji sighed contentedly and leaned into Hua Xiaoheng's arms. She lowered her eyes and giggled like a kitten that had stolen a fish. He looked down at her. Nianji, are you flirting with me? Gu Nianji. He had been discovered. She smiled and took a step back. She smoothed her hair and adjusted her slightly messy top. She tilted her head and said, Yes, did I seduce Hua Xiao? Just so. Keep up the good work. Hua Xiaoheng patted her head and gave her a perfunctory reply before turning to leave. Gu Nianji pouted as she followed him to the dining room for breakfast. They arrived at the dining room one after another and saw that Hu Jialan, Zhang Wenna and Zhang Wenjie were already there. Eldest cousin brother. The three of them stood up to greet Hua Xiaoheng. Hua Xiaoheng nodded and greeted them one by one. He waved for them to sit. Zhang Wenna's eyes lit up when she saw Gu Nianji's youthful and beautiful outfit. She smiled and came over to take her hand. Nianji, your outfit is so beautiful. Where did you buy it? What brand is it? Gu Nianji sat down with her and said, The top is Alice and Oliver and the pants are from a tailor. I also like this set of clothes very much. Alice and Oliver is a brand for young girls. It's sweet and light and sexy. Nianji, this goose yellow cashmere jumper is perfect for you. Without your fair and translucent skin, you wouldn't dare to wear such a bright color. Zhang Wenna was obviously very familiar with the world's famous brands. She spoke clearly and logically. Gu Nianji felt slightly embarrassed. If Hua Xiaoheng hadn't been so generous to her, an orphan like her wouldn't have had the opportunity to come into contact with the world's top brands. Because she had a small frame and an especially thin waist, but was more voluptuous and her legs were long, there weren't many suitable pants that she could buy. She had to change every pair anyway. After that, Hua Xiaoheng stopped buying her trousers from ready-to-wear brands. Instead, he had them all custom-made. There were well-known tailors in the country, and there were also custom-made tailors from foreign brands. He picked the fabric and style himself and traveled abroad 3 times a year just to make trousers for her. She had taken it all for granted and didn't think it was special. Later, when she went to university and came into contact with all kinds of students, she realized that Hua Xiaoheng treated her better than even her biological parents. Although she had no parents, she was lucky enough to meet Hua Xiaoheng when she was at her most helpless. Gu Nianji tilted her head and looked at Hua Xiaoheng with a smile. She turned to Zhang Wenna and nodded. You're right. I like this brand too, but I'm old now. I don't think it's appropriate for me to wear this brand anymore. What? Zhang Wenna's eyes widened. You're only 18. What do you mean old? Do you want us over 20 years old to live? Gu Nianji burst into laughter. You're exaggerating. How old are you again? 22, Zhang Wenna sighed. I want to be 18 too. Hua Jialan, who was sitting across from Hua Xiaoheng, shifted uncomfortably. She gently knocked on the table. Let's eat breakfast. The Hua family was very particular about not talking during meals. Although there were no elders joining them for breakfast, Hua Jialan was very strict about this rule. Zhang Wenna pursed her lips and pulled a long face. She lowered her head and stirred the milk and oatmeal in front of her. She hurriedly finished it and put down the bowl. She said to Hua Jialan, Sister Lan, I have a few friends that I'd like to invite to our family's New Year's party. Hua Jialan grunted. I'll give you a form. Fill it out and give it to me before tonight. I'll get someone to investigate. Investigate? Zhang Wenna raised her voice. Why are you investigating my friends? Because we don't know each other well. Hua Jialan didn't even look at her. I'm sure you know what this place is? Not just any Tom, Dick, or Harry can come here. You? Zhang Wenna was so angry she stood up. She pointed at Hua Jialan. Fine. If you don't want to come, then don't come. What's the big deal? It's not the big deal. Hua Jialan wiped her mouth with a napkin. But didn't you all go through so much just to be able to live here? Zhang Wenna felt a pang of guilt. She quickly glanced at Hua Xiaoheng and Gu Nianji, afraid that they would laugh at her. However, Hua Xiaoheng and Gu Nianji were in the exact same posture. They lowered their eyes and ate their breakfast, completely oblivious to what was happening in the dining room. Zhang Wenna sighed in relief. She glared at Hua Jialan and said to Hua Xiaoheng and Gu Nianji, Cousin brother Nianji, take your time. I'm going to leave first. Gu Nianji looked up to reply, but saw that Hua Jialan had already stormed off. Zhang Wenjie was extremely uncomfortable, but he couldn't bear to leave Gu Nianji. Seeing that she was still eating, he dilly-dallied to add milk to his oatmeal. He racked his brain to think of a way to speak to Gu Nianji. Miss Gu, have you been to the imperial capital before? Gu Nianji swallowed the last mouthful of breakfast and rinsed her mouth with tea. She smiled. This is my first time here. I'll be starting school next spring. Hua Xiaoheng looked up at Zhang Wenjie. He put down the knife and leaned over to Gu Nianji. Where did you put the things you bought? I'm going to bring them up. Gu Nianji quickly said, let's go together. They're all in my room. They were talking about the gifts for Hua Xiaoheng's mother, Song Jining. They were the things they had bought at the Chanel flagship store in Sion Square yesterday. Hua Xiaoheng nodded. When he got up, he said to Hua Jialan and Zhang Wenjie, you guys take your time. We'll be on our way. Zhang Wenjie's face flushed. He stood up and said to Gu Nianji, Miss Gu, if you want to go shopping in the imperial capital, I can take you there when I'm free. Gu Nianji smiled. Thank you. I'll look for you when I'm free. She followed Hua Xiaoheng back to their suite and found the Chanel bags. She said to Hua Xiaoheng, let's go up now. I don't know if Mrs. Hua is awake yet. Hua Xiaoheng took the bags from her and paused. He said dryly, don't call her Mrs. Hua anymore. My mother and father divorced more than 10 years ago. This was the second chapter, 2,400 words. Do you still have monthly votes? No, I can't write the third chapter. I'm too tired today. I'll try for the third chapter tomorrow. Chapter 213. Divorced more than a decade ago? Gu Nianji was stunned by Hua Xiaoheng's words. She stared at Hua Xiaoheng in a daze and slowly reached out to hold his wrist. Her throat was choked and she didn't know what to say to comfort him. They divorced more than a decade ago, and Hua Xiaoheng was still a teenager at the time. Hua Xiaoheng glanced at Gu Nianji. You don't have to comfort me. I already said it was a long time ago and it doesn't affect me anymore. I'm only telling you because I don't want you to hear it from someone else and overthink it. Gu Nianji wanted to hit him so badly. She silently let go. Hua Xiaoheng carried the Chanel bag and walked in front. He said dryly, of course I have a reason for saying this. Gu Nianji quickly followed and tugged on the corner of his shirt. She looked up at him to make things clear before leaving. Hua Xiaoheng stopped and turned to look at her. He said casually, I told you before that my mother suddenly fainted 16 years ago and became like this when she woke up. I remember. Gu Nianji quickly said, Auntie Song fainted because she was divorced. The corners of Hua Xiaoheng's mouth twitched as he rubbed her head with his free hand. What divorce? That little brain of yours always thinks too much. Actually, that's not the truth, but it involves confidentiality, so I can't tell outsiders. Gu Nianji was even more shocked. What involves confidentiality? And he fainted? Or was she divorced? Of course it's about fainting. Hua Xiaoheng was exasperated with Gu Nianji's insistence to get to the bottom of things, but since it involved his mother, it was also very important to Gu Nianji. Therefore he had to tell her. Of course he wouldn't say a word that he shouldn't. Gu Nianji said, Can I tell you? I really want to know. Of course I'll tell you what I can. Hua Xiaoheng said succinctly, My maternal grandfather was Song Haichuan, a famous high-energy physicist, but he passed away 16 years ago. Gu Nianji keenly sensed the same year, also 16 years ago? The year Auntie Song had her illness flared up? Could it be that her father's death had triggered her? She didn't expect Hua Xiaoheng to give a completely different reason. It's the same year. My mother is a scientist. She used to be a very smart woman. She went to university at the age of 15 and received her PhD in theoretical physics at the age of 20. After her PhD, she entered my grandfather's laboratory and helped the military conduct top-secret research. But on that day 16 years ago, my grandfather had an accident during an experiment, and the whole laboratory was destroyed. My grandfather passed away in that accident, and my mother was pushed out by my grandfather at the last moment. Her brain suffered a huge impact and concussion and she fainted. When I woke up I looked like this. Gu Nianji asked. So there was an accident? Yes. In the beginning he thought that she was just muddle-headed for a while and that she would get over it with time. In the end, after 4 or 5 years she was still the same. My father was a normal man and couldn't be with a patient. Hua Xiaoheng sighed. So we divorced. Gu Nianji gradually came back to her senses. She had mixed feelings and didn't know what to say. There was no one to blame for Song Jining becoming like this because of an accident during an experiment. At that time, she and Hua Guanchen were still young, and there was no reason to ask a man in his prime to stay chaste for his mentally ill wife. However, Gu Nianji was a woman, and there was always a barrier in her heart. After thinking for a long time, she said in a low voice, If this were the other way around and Uncle Hua met with this kind of accident, I think Auntie Song would definitely stay by his side. She wouldn't? Nianji, this is a matter between the elders. We have no right to interfere. Wu Xiaoheng turned around and walked out of the suite. Besides, it was only a legal divorce. My father and grandfather didn't allow the Song family to take my mother away, so she stayed at home. After all these years, my mother's condition hasn't worsened because this is the environment she is familiar with. But her illness hasn't improved either. Gu Nianji muttered to herself, but she instinctively knew that she shouldn't talk about this topic at this time. One was Wu Xiaoheng's mother, and the other was Wu Xiaoheng's father. He definitely couldn't blame one person for the other, especially in this matter where no one had made a mistake. He was in no position to blame anyone. Gu Nianji followed Wu Xiaoheng out of the room and suddenly remembered something. She tugged at the corner of his shirt and tried her best to control her gossipy expression. She asked very seriously, "Yes, then Hu Xiao, your father, that is, Uncle Hua, he didn't remarry, did he?" "No." Then, who does he resolve his personal problems with now?" Under Hu Xiaoheng's sharp gaze, Gu Nianji lowered her head in shame and circled her hands together. She was too gossipy, but she really wanted to know. Hu Guanchen had divorced Song Jining, who was mentally ill, because of marital problems, and a woman's intuition told her that Hu Guanchen must have divorced Song Jining to resolve his personal problems with another woman. Otherwise, he would be cheating on her in marriage, which was a very serious style problem. Wu Xiaoheng stared at Gu Nianji for a while. Although his expression was calm, he was still a little surprised. He didn't expect Gu Nianji to be so sensitive and immediately think of his father having someone else. Yes, he did have a girlfriend later. Wu Xiaoheng didn't want to talk about this anymore. "Let's go. My mother should still be making breakfast. Do you still want some porridge?" "Oh yes." Gu Nianji's attention was quickly diverted. Song Jining's porridge was so delicious that her taste buds still remembered the taste. The two of them carried 4 or 5 Chanel bags to Song Jining's residence on the 3rd floor. As expected, she was making breakfast in the small kitchen. She was still making porridge, but now there was seafood fried rice. When Song Jining saw Gu Nianji and Hu Xiaoheng come in, a confused expression appeared on her face. "May I ask who you're looking for?" Gu Nianji walked up to her and took her arm with a smile. "Mrs. Song, I'm here to freeload off your breakfast. Your porridge is so delicious." Although Gu Nianji had already had a full breakfast, Song Jining's food was even better. She didn't want to give it up. Song Jining looked embarrassed. No matter who it was, they would be very happy to be complimented. This was especially true for a mentally ill patient like Song Jining. Wu Xiaoheng sat alone in the small living room. Unlike Gu Nianji, he didn't go to the kitchen to join in on the fun. "Sure you like my porridge? Have you eaten it before?" Song Jining smiled as she scooped a small bowl of porridge for her. She then used a white orchid and iced jade porcelain plate to put a plate of golden fried rice on the dining table. Gu Nianji noticed that Hu Xiaoheng had used the same plate to put a plate of fried rice for Song Jining last time. Her gaze slid over Song Jining's body. Who said Song Jining wouldn't remember what happened the day before? She clearly remembered it, but the memory was too vague. It was so vague that it seemed like an instinct, a mother's instinct. "Hu Xiao, Mrs. Song's breakfast is ready. Do you want to come eat?" Gu Nianji called out. Wu Xiaoheng finally got up and walked in. He nodded to Song Jining to thank her. She didn't even dare to look him in the eye. She rubbed the apron in front of her chest with her hand and said quietly, "You guys eat. I'll go out and take a look." With that, she walked out quickly. Wu Xiaoheng sat down and looked at the fried rice in front of him. He calmly picked up the spoon and took a bite. Gu Nianji ate 2 mouthfuls of porridge and asked quietly, "Hu Xiao, where are the servants taking care of Auntie Song? Why haven't I seen them today?" This was the first chapter with 2,400 words. Continue begging for monthly votes and recommendation votes. Especially the recommendation votes on Monday. He didn't know if his relatives felt the same. The holidays were really more tiring than going to work. 0. Today, try to be as late as possible. My relatives will come to take a look at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. If there is, then there is. Then there would definitely be an update at 7 p.m. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.